Harry Potter, Sacrifice of All Things. Chapter 76. When Dumbledore caught up with them, they were almost at the exit trapdoor. With the help of the Devil Vine, they went up easily. Fluffy was not asleep at this time, but he did not seem to be very irritable, because its owner was right next to him. Yes, it was Hagrid. Not only Hagrid, but all the deans of the 4 colleges were here. Hermione, Ronald and Neville were also there. At this time, several people were staring at the trapdoor anxiously, and everyone was holding the wand in their hands, worried that the person coming up would be Voldemort. Voldemort was a dark cloud hanging over the Great Eagle Wizarding World after all, so that everyone dared not take it lightly when facing him. However, when they saw that the people coming up were Turners and others, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. This meant that the 2 of them were safe, and as for Voldemort, it didn't matter whether he was there or not. At this time, Snape no longer needed to disguise his cold and gloomy appearance. He quickly stepped forward, grabbed Harry's hand, and pulled him up from below. Such a performance, even Harry himself was stunned. This was the first and only time that Snape showed such concern for him. However, there were also people who knew the inside story, and they were not surprised by this, because those who knew the inside story knew that Snape's feelings for Lily were above everything else. After Snape pulled Harry up, Professor McGonagall also stepped forward and pulled Turns up, followed by Professor Dumbledore. Okay, everyone, now that the 2 little guys are safe, don't stay here, although I don't think it's necessary, but you still need to take them to find Madame Pomfrey and let her do a comprehensive examination. Dumbledore saw so many people here and could only remind them. Well, let's go quickly. Hermione was very worried about Turns's condition at this time, and supported Turns with the other hand. Although Turns felt that it was unnecessary, his 2 arms were tightly held by Professor McGonagall and Hermione, and he could not resist. After Madame Pomfrey's examination and confirmation that everything was fine, they were relieved. In the next few days, which were also the last few days at Hogwarts, Turns and others were also called by Professor Dumbledore for a talk. After telling the headmaster about their experiences and some previous investigations, there were no problems. Although they did wrongly accuse Professor Snape this time. However, Professor Snape did not care about them at that time, and since he showed great concern for Harry that time, that situation seemed to have never happened, and Snape returned to his original state. Perhaps, this is Professor Snape's contradiction. Today is the last day at Hogwarts. After lunch, they will take the Hogwarts Express back to the capital and their home. And when they meet again, it is likely to be September this year. During this dinner, Dumbledore, as the headmaster, will also announce the winner of this year's College Cup. Although Gryffindor has 2 scoring machines, Turners and Hermione, of course, there are also other people who work together to make their college score surpass Slytherin 10 times. However, it is a pity that although the 2 of them have added a lot, they can't stand the fact that some people make mistakes and deduct a lot. Therefore, at this time, Slytherin is still far ahead of other colleges in terms of college points. Fortunately, Gryffindor is not at the bottom, but is right behind, biting Slytherin's tail. Then it depends on Dumbledore's operation to see if he can do it this time. Gryffindor adds a few points. Actually, it doesn't need more, just 20 points is enough, they will definitely compete with Slytherin. However, when the points are added, Turns has to admire Dumbledore's thick skin. This obvious bias makes Snape's mouth twitch. Hello everyone, this will be the last dinner for many of you at Hogwarts, and in September, you will all move up to a higher level. In this year, your performance has been very good, and everyone has played to their strengths. Quote. But here, I want to emphasize the praise of several students. They are smart and brave, brave to explore, brave to challenge, facing unknown dangers, they are still able to face the difficulties without fear of danger. Their qualities are worthy of praise, and their courage is worthy of admiration. Here, I will announce a few things about the reward for the 10th place. First, Neville and Ronald, when they encountered difficulties, they were able to calmly seek help, unite with other students to find solutions, and calmly execute according to the plan. This is a kind of trust, so I will add 10 points to them, everyone. As Dumbledore's voice fell, a warm applause rang out throughout the auditorium. Neville and Ronald had already stood up when Dumbledore called their names. Looking at the excited expressions of the people around them, they felt very proud. The most enthusiastic among them was Gryffindor. After all, it was the glory of their college. The other two colleges were very respectful and applauded, and only Slytherin clapped twice symbolically, money, just for the sake of meaning. No one had any objection to this. After all, the targeting between the two colleges has been going on for a long time. Next, I want to praise Hermione. When faced with a difficult decision, was able to stick to her heart, help her friends, and hold the last line of defense. It was her existence that saved all the students in the school from facing danger. This is a kind of persistence. Quote. So, I will give Gryffindor 20 points. Hermione also stood up at this time and nodded politely to the people around her. Finally, it was Harry and Turner's. When they faced danger, they were able to disregard their own safety and stand up to protect important things from being used by bad guys, preventing a terrible disaster. Although they knew it was very dangerous, they still went forward bravely. This is a kind of courage. Quote. I will give Gryffindor 50 points for this, everyone. Finally, Dumbledore announced the news loudly, making everyone crazy. There have always been so many deductions, but no one has ever added so many points at once. In addition, through Dumbledore's previous evaluation, they all knew that this time Harry and Turner's faced no ordinary danger. The two people who can have this courage will undoubtedly become the focus of everyone. This means that the holiday is about to start. Otherwise, Turner's and the two will become the center of the faculty and students of the college for a long time. After eating the farewell meal, everyone took the Hogwarts Express to the capital. Turner's, what are you holding? Why do I feel like it is? Harry didn't say the next words, because he really didn't know how to say it. He was worried that if he really said it, it would bring a lot of unnecessary trouble to Turner's. However, Turner's obviously didn't have as many concerns as Harry 903, and said directly, yes, this is a small piece of the Philosopher's Stone. I asked Dumbledore for it, and I got Nicholas Flamel's consent. What? This is the Philosopher's Stone, does that mean it can turn stones into gold? Then, Turner's, you are rich, right? Ronald was obviously afraid of being poor. Although the family situation has improved, he still can't forget that feeling. He thought of this when he saw the Philosopher's Stone for the first time. Hermione rolled her eyes and said speechlessly, is this all you can think of? The Philosopher's Stone is the greatest alchemical creation in centuries. Ronald's face was already flushed after hearing this, but he still said stubbornly, I'm talking about one of its functions. Neville changed the subject and asked, cousin, what do you want this thing for? You are only 11 years old now, you shouldn't need this thing to make elixirs. Neville obviously did a lot of homework when he investigated the Philosopher's Stone and Nick at school, and knew where the most magical place of the Philosopher's Stone was. Of course not, I use it only for possible alchemical experiments in the future. It will be a raw material for a magic prop. When I make the prop, you will know. Turner's said excitedly. He didn't lie, this is indeed a raw material, and Turner's didn't think of using it to prolong his life, because it was totally unnecessary. Not to mention other things, the life-sharing contract he signed with Kiki and Stilly, the vitality shared with him, is enough for him for a long time, conservatively estimated to be 500 years, and he won't consider this issue for the time being. Moreover, he didn't like the elixir made from the magic stone. That thing requires sacrificing the magic power in the body to transform vitality to maintain life. This is the lowest level of practice, and Turner's doesn't like it at all. He remembered that in a game in his previous life, there was a ring that had the magical function of allowing the wearer to offset the loss of health by consuming 1.5 times the magic value. Although Turner's didn't know when he could achieve that with his alchemy level, he had some ideas with this magic stone. What kind of magic prop is it? You know, the current magic stone is already a very powerful magic prop. That thing can actually surpass this magic stone. What kind of prop is it? Hermione was also interested at this time, wondering what Turner's was thinking. Turner's didn't know how to explain it to them. He couldn't say that it was a game that gave him this sense of slavery. Besides, he might not be able to realize it. However, he still explained to others briefly that the magic prop he envisioned might be realized in the future. After hearing Turner's wild imagination, the people present were stunned. Afterwards, they discussed whether Turner's idea was reasonable or not, and even later, they began to discuss what magic could help Turner's idea. Obviously, during the discussion, they gradually recognized some of Turner's ideas. However, they were just a group of first-grade primary school students after all. They did not have so much knowledge reserves, and could not come up with any good insights. They were just wild imaginations. However, these are the most valuable, because only if you think about it and find ways to prove and realize it, you can gain more knowledge. The most important thing for human beings is to move forward in constant exploration. Turner's recorded all the ideas they put forward, waiting to practice them at home after returning home. In this regard, children from wizard families actually have a great advantage. Because after they go home for the holidays, they can still learn to cast magic at home, which invisibly distances them from children from Muggle families. Turner's also invited Hermione to come to the Longbottom family during the summer vacation to participate in Turner's research. Of course, Turner's also invited Harry. As for Ronald, there was no need. Since they had become friends and their families were also wizarding families, they only needed a simple flow network to quickly go to each other's homes. Besides, at this stage, the Longbottom family and the Weasley family were in the honeymoon period of cooperation, and the two sides also met frequently to enhance their feelings. They would meet each other very frequently during this summer vacation, and there was no need for invitations at all. Soon, the Hogwarts Express arrived at the destination, and they said goodbye briefly and went home. After returning home, Turner's also relaxed at home for a while. After all, being in a high-pressure learning state for a long time would not significantly improve learning efficiency, but would only make people more tired. However, he only relaxed for a week. This time when facing Voldemort, he really felt his terror. Just a remnant soul that was barely alive, so Tina's needed to sneak attack to have a chance to solve it. It is conceivable how terrible he would be if he had a certain strength. Tina's dared not relax at all. Every day, in addition to conducting research in various aspects, Tina's also made routine sacrifices 10 times a day. After so many years of experience, he also roughly figured out some small rules of the sacrificial altar. The first 10 sacrifices of the day are the easiest time to get good things. Although there is a possibility of no good things in the subsequent sacrifices, the probability will be very low. If you continue to sacrifice, it will be a bit worthless. Therefore, Tina's basically sacrifices 10 times a day, and he will stop sacrificing whether good things come out or not. After all, it is impossible for him to waste most of his time on the sacrificial altar every day. No matter how many good things you get from the sacrifice, you must have enough strength to use them. Many things cannot be used immediately after getting them. You still need to explore it yourself, especially those related knowledge. You need to understand them thoroughly before you can use them little by little through practice, otherwise they will just be left there to gather dust. At present, Turner's focus is still on magic. After all, compared with the improvement of strength in a short period of time, magic is still fast and effective. Others, such as cultivation, can be measured in years. Maybe after a retreat, the plot of Harry's world is almost coming to an end. Then what's the point of him coming out? Of course, this does not mean that cultivation is not good. On the contrary, cultivation is too good. Not only is the strength improvement very terrifying, but it is also very significant for the development of the human body. The first point is that although magic cultivation can prolong people's life, it is always limited. Even if it is a wizard like Dumbledore will also show signs of aging when he gets older, and his strength will also decline due to physical reasons. Moreover, he can only live to about 150 years old at most, which is just the ultimate limit of the human body. And this is still in the most ideal state. If something unexpected happens, he may lose his life at any time due to the exhaustion of magic power. But cultivation is different. Not to mention the nourishment of spiritual energy to the body, it will strengthen the body to a certain extent, thereby breaking the limit of life. Even if he reaches the limit of life, as long as he has not entered the 5 decays of heaven and man, he still has strong strength. If he can make a breakthrough during this period, he can even extend his life and live longer. The difference between the two is very obvious. Of course, although cultivation is powerful, it also has its limitations. The biggest limitation is that it takes a lot of time to polish oneself and then break through to a higher level. For Turners now, practicing magic is his best choice. Unless he wants to give up the entire Longbottom family, find a hidden place, retreat for hundreds of years, and wait Voldemort turned into ash, and he came out again. However, that was obviously not what Turnus pursued. Of course, more importantly, in fact, Turnus did not have any better cultivation secrets in his hand. The only one was just the most basic chi refining secrets. Even if he cultivated to the end, he could only develop his potential and reach the maximum human lifespan of more than 300 years, and he could still live for such a long time in the peak state of the human body. Only when he entered the 5 decays of heaven and man would he age and die rapidly. Although this is already amazing, it still does not meet Turner's requirements. After all, the strength level of the chi refining stage is equivalent to the intermediate magic level of the magic level in this world. With such strength, what's the use of living longer? When you meet an enemy you can't beat, you'll still die. Of course, Turners still handed this cultivation secret book to his family. Now Turner's grandmother Ophusta and his parents are practicing it. After all, their strength has reached the peak at this time, and there is no room for improvement. Instead, they have plenty of time to practice cultivation techniques. This can even keep them strong and achieve the effect of prolonging their lives. And their strength will not decline due to the decline of their bodies. This is undoubtedly a perfect thing. Recently, Turners has been studying rune magic, with the main target being the magic of Kamar Taj from the Marvel world. He didn't have any advanced magic here, but in a previous sacrifice, he got an entry-level magic book called The Book of Vision. This book doesn't involve many magics, but it fundamentally analyzes the true meaning of Kamar Taj magic. 0.00. It can be said to be the foundation of the foundation. In this book, the level of magic is roughly divided into 4-knot shield, 2-3-knot domain, 4-4 all carrying, etc. There are no more advanced ones here, but this is enough for Turnus at this time. Among them, the 4-knot shield refers to the magic rune carrier carved by the magician when casting magic, that is, the pattern in the center of the magic pattern that looks like a round shield. Generally speaking, for beginners, the pattern in the center is basically a square, which is the origin of the 4-knot shield in the level classification. As for the 2-3-knot domain, it is the central carrier, formed by the superposition of 2 triangular patterns, that is, the hexagonal star pattern. 4 fours all bear, that is, 2 squares are superimposed to form an octagonal pattern. The higher the level of bearing, the more runes it can bear, and the more complex the entire magic circle will be. The more complex the magic circle, the more magic power it can carry, and the more powerful the magic will be. It is well known that most of the mages in Kamar Taj are melee mages, and their magic is more inclined to shaping magic. Use magic power to condense magic weapons for attack and defense. And this has evolved their unique magic culture. Since it is a close combat, then naturally, the physical fitness must keep up, otherwise, if you run to someone, you will be sending your head. In this magic book, there are these simple shaping magics, amplification magics that increase physical strength and reaction speed. Although they are not powerful magics, they have opened a new door for Turners. Before this, Turners had only been exposed to some long-range magics, and there were rarely such magics that serve close combat. After a short period of learning, relying on his excellent magic control ability, he has been able to successfully perform such magic. It's just that because he is not very proficient, sometimes there will be some mistakes, resulting in the magic not being performed smoothly, and the failure of performing 390. The performance of this kind of magic is also relatively complicated. When performing it, it is necessary to lay the magic carrier before the battle and carve a line of magic inscriptions. After all the magic inscriptions are carved, the magic is considered to be successfully performed. However, if this is placed in the hands of an unskilled magician, the whole process will take at least more than 10 seconds. With this time, other people would have already cast a death curse. So, to be honest, this magic is not suitable for this world, because the means of casting magic are too cumbersome. Moreover, this magic system has another disadvantage, that is, the magic inscriptions you have carved can be clearly seen by the enemy. When the locals see your magic inscriptions, the magic you want to cast will no longer be a secret to the enemy. Of course, with so many shortcomings, the magic system can still be carried forward by Master Ji Yi, which naturally has its advantages. Otherwise, it would have been eliminated by other magic systems long ago. The biggest advantage of this magic system is the use of rich magic inscriptions, which allows it to easily produce magic props. Because, when casting the magic of this system, it is actually based on the magic carrier laid by itself to make a disposable magic prop. This means that when making magic props, other magic systems need to first involve the study of alchemy, then the study of magic patterns, and only after having enough skills can they gradually start to try to make magic props. However, the Kamar Taj system does not need this, because every time they cast magic, they are actually making magic props one by one. Song can't keep it up for a long time. And this is the fundamental reason why Turners has been studying it recently. During this period, Turners has been trying to make some magic props through the Kamar Taj system. Although he has not yet entered deep, Turners believes that after his long-term research, he will be able to make a batch of such magic props. The magic system of Kamar Taj also gave Turners a lot of inspiration. One of them is that since magic can be used to make magic props, then can magic props also be used through the magic casting method of the Kamar Taj system to realize the possibility of understanding the working principle of magic props. This point has been confirmed in Turner's hands. Because, he successfully replicated the magic on the flame ring through the method of Kamar Taj. He successfully used the 4-knot shield carrier to replicate the magic inscription of the flame ring and released a fireball. And the power of this fireball is much higher than that of the flame ring. After all, the magic inscription on the flame ring has been completely solidified and will not change due to the amount of magic power. However, the fireball spell cast by Turnus can increase the magic power by increasing the magic output. After having a successful case, Turnus is more motivated and immersed in the replication of magic props every day. Of course, he will not study those two powerful magic props, but only those very ordinary props. After a month of research, Turnus successfully made a Doran bracelet. Yes, that Doran, using the magic inscription of Doran's ring, he successfully reproduced 10 enhanced versions of the Doran bracelet. Originally, it only increased a little blood volume, the state manifested by increasing a little physical strength, added a little magic power, manifested by increasing a little mental strength, a little magic recovery effect, and a faster mana recovery. However, when the Doran bracelet was made, Turnus tried it and could clearly feel that the Doran bracelet's amplification effect on the body was as high as an astonishing 10%. As for the amplification of mental strength, it also reached 1/20th. You know, Turnus's mental strength is very high now, plus these years of continuous training, and the supplement of natural materials and treasures, his mental strength is much stronger than that of ordinary adult wizards. At least it can reach the mental strength level of a high-level wizard, but even so, it can be enhanced so much, you can imagine the amplification strength of the Doran bracelet. As for the recovery of magic power, it has naturally been greatly improved. It can be said that this magic bracelet is the most successful magic prop since Turnus learned alchemy. Of course, this success is not only due to the improvement of Turnus's alchemy skills. His consumption of materials has also been successfully improved by more than one level 3.7 times. This Doran bracelet consumes a lot of materials. In order to achieve better results, the materials used by Turnus are all very precious materials. He only uses magic superconductors such as mithril to make the main body of the Doran bracelet. Perhaps, only he has such a generous hand. Others are very careful and save when drawing magic inscriptions, not to mention the main body of the magic prop. Unlike him, he directly uses a whole piece of mithril as the main body of the magic prop. This Doran bracelet looks extraordinary, but Turnus also believes that it only takes some time for those alchemy masters to successfully understand the magic inscriptions of the Doran bracelet. The mithril that Turnus used to make one Doran bracelet was enough for them to make more than 10, and the effect might be better than that of Turnus. But, there was no way. Turnus didn't have much else, but he had a lot of magic materials, and he was helpless. After the first successful example, Turnus found the trick. In the following time, he successfully cracked the wand-making process and the flying broom-making process in Harry's world. Although it can't reach the highest level of these two magic props for the time being. But at least it is at the average level. If you count his piles of rare magic materials, the power of these two magic props he made is even better than the props made by these two top crafts. In order to celebrate Neville's joining the Gryffindor Quidditch team in the 2nd grade, Turnus made a flying broom for him. Although in terms of manufacturing technology, it only reached the level of 2000 light wheels. Compared with the later updated Light Wheel 2001, and the Firebolt which currently only exists in the laboratory and only supports special customization, but cannot be mass-produced, his technology is already very backward. However, when it is really unbearable, Ness is willing to use materials. Only the handle of the broom is made of a branch of baldcypress from the magical plane. The magic fluctuations on this branch are very obvious, and it is also a rare tree with attributes, among which the attribute is the wind attribute that is most suitable for making flying props. With such an innately excellent material as the main body of the broom, this broom has shown its extraordinariness from the beginning. In addition, some branches brought by the elf fruit, combined with some other branches, provide enough flying power for the main broom. There is also very precious refined gold as the carrier of the magic circuit. After this broom was made, it showed extraordinary quality during the trial. After many adjustments, some not very ideal places were successfully optimized. At this point, the flying broom made by him was officially produced. This flying broom, although it cannot be said to beat the Firebolt, after all, that is unrealistic. It represents the highest craftsmanship at this stage, and the gap in technology cannot be filled by the gap in materials. Besides, the materials used to make the Firebolt are not necessarily much worse than his. However, it has successfully surpassed all the properties of the Nimbus 2001. After using 2 weeks to make a flying broom, Turners devoted all the remaining time to the research of the magic wand. In the magic world, the importance of the magic wand is naturally self-evident. A good magic wand can bring a great improvement in people's strength. Until the end, Voldemort was looking for a magic wand to improve his strength. Although Turners knew that the old wand was in Dumbledore's hands, Turners had no interest in it. Although it had enough spirituality, it had obviously gone astray. Turners had no interest in such a shameless wand. Besides, he had the support of magic knowledge in the heavens and the worlds, and the assistance of many magic materials. He didn't believe that he couldn't make a powerful wand by himself. However, after continuous attempts, Turners also found a problem. In this world, the so-called magic wand, what really determines its power is never the technology. Because, among the many magic wands, Turners did not notice any too advanced technology. If there is any, it is that the craftsmanship is good, and the core of the wand can be perfectly embedded in the wand. But such craftsmanship, let alone Ollivander, even if you find a senior technician in the Muggle world, can basically make it. After a period of thinking, Turners finally figured out that the real core of Ollivander's wand-making process is not technology or anything. It is a concept, and the fit between the wand core and the carrier. If the fit is high, the power of the wand will naturally be greater. If the fit is not enough, the effect that can be produced will naturally be much smaller. This seems simple, but it is not so simple, because the size of the fit is not a simple attribute problem. It is determined by many factors, which requires not only the understanding of magic materials, but also a lot of experience accumulation and long-term attempts to ensure it. This is a very huge project, not a problem that can be solved overnight. Fortunately, after thinking about this, Turners no longer continued to work on the wand manufacturing technology. Instead, he simply found a few magic materials, made a few wands himself to practice, and then stopped studying. Among these wands, his favorite one was the one he made for Kiki. It was only the size of a toothpick, but it was considered a big one for Kiki. However, such a wand was also a big challenge for Turners. After all, the materials were too small, and it was hard to successfully embed the wand core. That is, Turners had never stopped practicing magic hands over the years, which made his hands very flexible, so that he could do it. It was not an easy task for ordinary people. The wand of Kiki was made of a small branch of the elf tree on the fruit of the elves, and the wand core was made of Kiki's own hair. It can be said that these two materials are the most suitable, after all, they are from the same source. When the wand was made, the power it showed was also very powerful. Kiki was like a fish in water when she got this wand. Not only can she learn and perform magic from this world, but she can also perform her own bloodline magic through the wand, and it is even more powerful. In addition to this, although Turnus tried his best to find materials with matching properties for the other wands, the final result and the power it showed were still not as good as the wands purchased from Ollivander's wand shop. Although the difference is not far, there is still a little gap, which is not what Turners expected. Since there is no way to break this stalemate for the time being, Turners does not plan to work on it. In addition, Hermione came to their house recently, and Harry and Ronald came with her. Harry and Ronald came together because Harry was at Ronald's house recently. Hermione went on a trip abroad with the Grangers at the beginning of the holiday and only came back recently. After returning, she came to the Longbottoms' house to prepare for some advance preparation for the next study. Moreover, there are also advantages in their home, that is, you can freely perform magic without worrying about the Ministry of Magic's traces. Turners, is this your alchemy laboratory? It's really great, it feels so advanced. Ronald looked at the various instruments and equipment displayed in the room in front of him, and felt that it was really exciting. How is it? Isn't it great? I spent a lot of money to build this. Usually when I'm at home, I basically study some alchemy here. Turners was also very happy to introduce his laboratory to others. To be honest, this is indeed one of the best magic alchemy rooms in the Great Eagle Wizarding world. It cost Turners more than 1 million gold galleons to build this place. And this does not include the materials he got from the sacrificial altar to fill this laboratory. To be honest, the specific value of this laboratory is at least more than 5 million. Is this place where you usually stay? It looks great, but are you so deep in alchemy now? Hermione was obviously shocked. As a top student, Hermione naturally has some knowledge of many things here. Although I haven't touched more than a dozen items, I have seen some of them in books, so I can recognize them naturally. Yes, I started to gradually build this laboratory when I was 9 years old. At the beginning, it was just a small matter, but as time went by, I gradually achieved some results. Quote. After getting the reward, my family no longer restricted my funds, so this place has grown so big now. Turnus said very complacently. After all, this is also his ability. He was able to expand the laboratory from a few small items at the beginning to a level of 5 million, and it only took 3 years, which was enough for him to be proud of. Well, this is great. You said you have some results. What are they? Can I see them? Hermione is very concerned about Turnus's achievements. She wants to see what Turnus has done. Of course, there is no problem. You come with me. In the basement of the laboratory is my item display area. There are all the results produced by my laboratory, and they are all first-generation products, laboratory level. I believe you will be amazed. Turnus was very confident. When he came to a statue, Turnus stood there. After the statue sensed Turnus's existence, it opened its eyes. With a wave of magic power, the statue seemed to confirm something and the whole statue stood up. Until this time, the people following Turners knew that this griffin statue was actually a magic guard, specially guarding Turner's collection of works. Of course, Neville knew about this, but he didn't say it out loud. What he wanted was the performance of his friends who came here for the first time like him. Now, he was very satisfied. He wanted this effect. Following Turner's CJAE footsteps, they came to the underground, where there was a very special venue, which was almost the same size as the Quidditch field. There were many glass display cabinets in the entire underground space, and many cabinets were filled with display items. Of course, most of the exhibits here were not worth much, but were placed here because they were made by Turners. And there were only 3 things that really moved his family and made them start to give Turners unlimited support when he was 9 years old. These 3 things were exploration goggles, magic protective arm guards and flying rings. The exploration goggles are actually the kind of goggles in Turner's hands, which can see the surrounding situation clearly in a dim light environment, protect the face, and detect magic fluctuations. The magic protection arm guard is the mithril arm guard in the set of equipment in Turner's hands. Of course, it is impossible to use mithril as the main material for selling. Without mithril as the main body, its effect is naturally discounted to a certain extent, but this still cannot cover up the practicality of this magic item. The arm guard is not only able to shoot out claws and grab things. Its biggest function is actually to be able to resist most offensive magic with an arm guard. Even the crushing spell of a high-level wizard can be resisted in front of the magic arm guard, but the number of crushing spells that can be borne varies according to the level of the arm guard. The most common one can resist 3 crushing spells, and the higher one can resist 10. At present, the best-selling one on the market is a magic arm guard that can resist 20 crushing spells. As for the one in Turner's hand, it is extraordinary. It is mainly made of mithril, with enough magic runes in refined gold and red gold, and several magic crystals as energy supply. That arm guard can even resist 2 death curses, which is naturally not comparable to ordinary items. This kind of magic arm guard is powerful, and it can play a very practical role in the process of fighting. Therefore, in the past few years, the benefits brought to the Longbottom family are really huge. As for the third magic prop, it has not yet been laid out on the market, and according to the strategy of the Longbottom family, it will not be sold for the time being. The flying ring has a very magical effect, that is, it can cast the flying spell silently without a wand. But don't underestimate this spell, it can change the direction of a battle. Imagine that when the 2 wizards are dueling, one party uses the disarming spell and calls the other person's wand. When he was smug and wanted to taunt his defeated opponent, he suddenly found that the man who had just been disarmed by him now had the magic wand that had just been knocked away in his hand. Just imagine what kind of feeling this is. And if it was just like this, it would be fine. After all, as long as you are strong enough and have good control over magic power, you can practice more to cast magic without a wand. However, this ring has another function, which is to store magic wands like a space ring. It can only store 1 magic wand. Because this is not a space ring, but a ring made by the Traceless Extension spell. In fact, the manufacturing technology of this ring is not complicated. The only thing that shines is its design concept. This is a ring with a small hole inside. The Traceless Extension spell was cast on the small hole, which can store some things. It's a pity that such a ring, no matter how much the Traceless Extension spell is cast, the space inside it is not big. At most, it can only store 1 magic wand. Add a flying spell pattern to the ring, and it will become the flying ring. The flying spell on this ring is not only for the outside, but also for the inside. Because the entrance and exit of the space, as well as the interior, are too small, it is impossible to reach in and take things out like other purses. That is obviously unrealistic, and the only way is to let the magic wand fly out through the flying spell. But don't underestimate this magic prop, it can bring great convenience to people. Think about it, in normal times, wizards need to bring a magic wand that is as long as their forearm and as thick as their index finger wherever they go. No matter where it is placed, it will be inconvenient, and sometimes it will cause certain obstacles to people's actions. These are problems that are easy to encounter in daily life. Moreover, although the magic wand has been reinforced with magic, it is just a wooden stick after all. No matter how it is reinforced, it is just like that. It is very likely that at any time, the magic wand will break directly because of carelessness. This will cause a problem, they need to replace a wand. However, this will cause a problem, the compatibility of the wand and the wizard. Regardless of whether the wand chooses the wizard or the wizard chooses the wand, at the beginning, when the wizard picks up a new wand, it is the time when the compatibility between them is the lowest. Only with the gradual cultivation in the future, the wizard's magic power flows through the wand, and the wand gradually adapts to the wizard's magic power and his spellcasting habits, can they cooperate tacitly and truly exert the strength of a wizard. Imagine that if a wizard is in high-intensity combat all year round, from time to time, the wand breaks due to intense exercise. Then he has to buy a new one and cultivate the degree of tacit understanding. During this period, the wizard's strength is actually regressed. Fighting in this period of time, under the same circumstances, it is very likely that 2 different results will appear. This is also the case. Many powerful wizards carry a cane with them, Lucius Malfoy, and hide their wands in the cane, which can not only show etiquette, but also protect the fragile wand. This is just a helpless move. Holding a cane in your hand all the time is not as convenient as imagined. The flying ring is different. How much trouble can a ring take to wear on your hand? There is no need to worry that the wand will be accidentally broken due to intense exercise, nor that the wand will hinder their actions. Moreover, in extraordinary circumstances, they can also recall their wands through the ring. All these conveniences highlight the practicality of this magic prop. However, it is a pity that this magic prop is really not technically content. As long as it is a wizard above the intermediate level, it can be made. Perhaps it will be due to different levels of personal knowledge and different levels of difficulty, but undoubtedly, intermediate wizards have the ability to make flying rings. This makes this magic idea seem a bit tasteless. Because, once the Longbottom family starts selling this thing, it won't take a few days, as long as this magic prop appears on the market. Someone will start to imitate it immediately. Perhaps before they can get their money back, this thing will be figured out by others, and it will become a joke if they want to sell it in the future. This is its helplessness. It has a good enough idea, but not good enough technology, that is, there is not enough profit point. Selling it is a loss, which also led to its fate of being thrown here to eat dust. Although the Longbottom family doesn't care about such a little money, they don't have to come up with such a good idea to other people in the wizarding world. With such a purpose, this thing can only be left here. When talking about this, Turners was also very regretful. Although others feel it's a pity, this thing is indeed like Turners said, it can't buy much money. If it is taken out, it will benefit the wizards in the entire wizarding world. People with good hearts can still remember the kindness of the Longbottom family, while those with bad intentions will only mock them behind their backs. Of course, there is another reason why this flying ring has not been made public. Turner's face became solemn when he said this. Oh, what is the reason? Hermione asked curiously. She could understand the other reasons and she thought of a lot of things, but she couldn't think of any other reason why Turners hid this thing here and was unwilling to make it public. Turns said seriously, you should also know that although Voldemort has disappeared in recent years, he is not really dead. As long as he is not completely dead, the entire wizard world will be in great danger. Although this thing can benefit the entire wizard world, it will also become a weapon for some malicious people. If Voldemort's followers also master this thing, the harm to the entire martial world will be too great. Although this thing has been exposed, wizards in the entire wizard world can use it, but with the recklessness of those guys, it will obviously improve them more, and more people will die at that time, so it is not the time to announce this thing now. After hearing what Turners said, everyone was silent. They all knew that Turners was right. With such a hidden hand technology, those Death Eaters would be more arrogant and cause more damage to the entire wizarding world. The more intense the confrontation, the more wizards would die. Perhaps it is very likely to cause a devastating blow to the entire wizarding world. Those guys will not show mercy, and for their own safety, the resistance of ordinary wizards will definitely be more intense. Don't talk about coercion and rule. A rabbit needs people when it is anxious. If the oppression is too strong, there will always be people who resist. Well, this thing really can't be released. It's too convenient. Song hopes that Principal Dumbledore can solve Voldemort's 97 danger as soon as possible. Harry also said at this time. Among the people present, he hated Voldemort the most, and at the same time, he felt the most about Voldemort. So, even if he didn't know a lot of things, he could have a feeling that Voldemort had never died. Even though he was there before and saw Voldemort's residual soul being destroyed by Turners, he still felt that Voldemort was not dead. This was an intuition. Afterwards, Harry and others wandered around in this underground exhibition hall. In front of those magic props, there were their functions and names. Turners didn't need to accompany them personally. His main companion was definitely not Hermione, the little lowly. During this period, Turners naturally received praises from the three people one after another, but these words of praise did not make Turners feel happy. On the contrary, these praises made him more determined to explore magic. Because Turners knew very well that the things here, including the door and bracelet, the wind spirit broom, and the life wand that were just successfully made in recent days. If you really count them, they are at most equivalent to low-level magic props. They may look magical, but they are also very powerful. But this is just an illusion. Their essence is still just a piece of magic effect that is piled up with high-end magic materials. In essence, they are still just low-level magic props. He deeply understands that he has just started on the road of alchemy and the road of magic exploration. After a simple stroll, Turnus took them to his room. This place was also transformed by Turnus into the format he liked. Sitting on the table by the window, Turnus took out a fist-sized blue-purple potion from the space ring. There was even a trace of silver light flashing in the potion, which looked very beautiful. Turnus, what is this? It looks so beautiful. Hermione looked at the potion in Turnus' hand and asked curiously. Turnus smiled mysteriously, without further explanation, but poured a small cup of potion for each of them. This is a good thing, you try it, it tastes good, and after drinking it, carefully feel the changes that the potion brings to you. Turnus did not answer Hermione's doubts, but kept it a secret. The three of them were very curious, not knowing what kind of medicine Turnus bought, but they thought it would not harm them, so they picked up the potion in front of them and slowly drank it into their mouths. There was a light salty taste when it first entered the mouth, but if you savor it carefully, it is a very refreshing feeling. In short, it is very strange and wonderful. After drinking the potion, the three closed their eyes and carefully felt the changes of the potion in their bodies. At the beginning, it was not very obvious. But gradually, a feeling of fullness came from their bodies, and then the whole body, in this feeling, began to slowly heat up. Time slowly passed, and in the end, the skin of the three people was swollen and red. However, strangely, the three of them did not feel too much discomfort, they just felt uncomfortable. After about half an hour, this feeling slowly disappeared, and when the feeling in the body was completely calmed down, the three of them opened their eyes. The three looked at each other and looked at Turnus in disbelief. At this time, they had the deepest understanding of their physical condition, and it was precisely because of their deep understanding that they knew the difficulty of this potion. The three of them originally only had magic power reserves at the level of magic apprentices, but in just half an hour, they had reached the level of elementary magicians. Don't look at such a small step first. At their age, being able to have such strength is enough to be proud of. And this was given to them by just a small cup of magic potion. Turnus is really amazing, what on earth is this? It actually has such a powerful effect. Hermione asked Turnus excitedly. Turnus did not speak immediately. He took a pot of hot water from the tea set beside him, brewed a pot of green tea, poured it for everyone, and then explained, this potion is called the Magic Source Potion. As the name suggests, it can improve the magician's strength from the source, and the source of the magician's strength is naturally the magic power in the body. It is a potion that can increase the magician's magic limit. This potion can only be taken once in a lifetime. It is useless to take more. I just happen to have some left, so I'll give it to you. Turnus said casually. However, the three people who understand the preciousness of this magic source potion naturally know that what Turnus paid is not as easy as he said. Turnus looked at the three people who were still serious, and couldn't help but laugh. Okay, don't be so serious, this thing may be very precious, but for those who have taken it, it is really just that. Besides, aren't we friends? Friends should help each other, right? After listening to Turnus' sincere words, the three people nodded firmly. Yes, we are friends, best friends. Actually, I had no choice but to do this. Turnus suddenly said this. The three people who were originally very excited suddenly became silent. Seeing this, Turnus laughed out loud. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Seeing Turnus' performance, the three people's faces, which had already become serious, suddenly collapsed. But, what I said was not all a joke. The three people quickly put away their expressions on their faces and listened to Turnus' next words very seriously. They knew that the next words would definitely not be a joke anymore. Although we have only known each other for a year, through observing you and the development of things around you during this period, I have discovered something. Turnus glanced at everyone very seriously, and finally locked his eyes on Harry. Harry can become the savior in the prophecy. In fact, it is not just a lie, but he is indeed suitable for Voldemort, and there is a very deep connection between them, and this connection makes Harry and Voldemort always meet each other unconsciously. After hearing what Turnus said, Hermione panicked and quickly denied it. This is impossible. Harry should have no connection with Voldemort. Maybe the previous incident was just a coincidence. Hermione did not deny Harry's record. She was not that kind of person. She was just worried about what Turnus said. If it was true, then Harry's future would not be easy. After all, it was Voldemort who was involved in Harry's fate. This dark cloud that enveloped the entire wizarding world was not such a simple person. Being involved with such a dangerous guy, you can imagine how dangerous it is. No, Turnus may be right. I have had such a feeling too. Quote. Harry interrupted Hermione at this time. He also knew that Hermione denied this because she cared about him. In the past year, with Turns as the mediator, the relationship between the five of them was naturally good, and there was basically no conflict. Coupled with the fate of the dark, the relationship between the five people became more and more harmonious. After all, with Turns, he was always able to avoid some conflicts. In addition, at this time, Ronald and Hermione had no intersection, and Hermione's academic brilliance was overshadowed by Turns' academic brilliance. Turns's character would only make people admire, and would not produce any jealous emotions. In the past year, although I was actively investigating Voldemort's purpose, things were not that simple. I could always get useful information at critical moments, which pushed me involuntarily in front of Voldemort. If I didn't know that it was impossible for anyone to control all this, I would feel that all this seemed to be arranged. Quote. Harry said this, and he was a little annoyed, and he grabbed his messy hair fiercely. So, all this is like the trajectory of fate. Everything started from Voldemort believing that language. There has been an unbreakable connection between Voldemort and Harry, which is inevitable. Before Turnus could finish his words, Hermione took over and said, so you gave us the magic potion to improve our strength and give us a better chance of winning in the next possible event, right? Turnus smiled at Hermione's wise eyes and her playful and arrogant appearance. Yes, so are any of you afraid? Are you afraid of Voldemort and his minions who may face you next? Of course not, I will definitely be able to defeat Voldemort and avenge my parents. Harry was the first to speak. He and Voldemort had long been at odds with each other. There would only be one result, either you die or I die. Then came Hermione. She was also very excited. Yes, she was excited, a kind of excitement when she was about to face a super challenge. I have no problem, I am ready to meet the challenge. Quote. As a little tale who has been following Turners since childhood, Neville did not back down at this time, and said very bravely, I can do it too, I also want to avenge my parents and send that crazy woman to hell. The crazy woman Neville mentioned was Bellatrix, the culprit who tortured his parents and caused them permanent mental damage. The other three were still a little confused about who Neville was talking about, but at this time they did not ask much, but looked at Ronald who had not yet expressed his opinion. Although Ronald was indeed a little scared, at this time, he could not be timid, he could only bite the bullet and say the strongest words in the most timid tone, let's send Voldemort to hell together. Seeing Ronald behave like this, everyone laughed. They also knew that anyone would be afraid of Voldemort. After all, this was a fierce man who could still overwhelm the entire wizarding world more than 10 years after his death. So, they did not mean to laugh at Ronald, but were happy that Ronald could overcome his fear and fight side by side with them. Well, now I officially announce that the alliance against Voldemort has been officially established. Harry suddenly said this at this time, and the atmosphere of the whole circle froze. The frozen atmosphere made Harry seem to realize something. He scratched his head and asked awkwardly, is there any problem with the name I chose? 1. Faced with Harry's knowing question, Ronald suddenly became excited, rolled his eyes and said very confidently, problem. Of course there is a problem, this name is simply, outburst, okay. Who said that? I think this name is good, we are going to fight Voldemort anyway. Harry was still unwilling to give up and argued with reason. Okay, Harry, don't argue, we all don't agree with this name, it's too shameful, right? Hermione also echoed from the side. Seeing Hermione say this, Harry suddenly lowered his head, a little frustrated. Okay, everyone, why don't we call our alliance the Leader Wizard Alliance? We have to do our best and lead an era forward. After hearing what Turnus said, everyone was stunned. They began to comment on this name, Leader, someone who leads an era forward. This is indeed a very good name, better than what they thought, and the name is very straightforward and obvious, that is, to be the trendsetter of the times, which is exactly what they thought. Well, let's call it the Leader, to be the leader of this era. Hermione agreed. After getting Hermione's approval, the rest was much easier, and others also agreed. So far, an organization destined to become a legend was established unintentionally by these 5 teenagers. Although the current Leader Alliance has become an organization, they are still just children after all, and they did not realize that an organization needs complete rules and regulations. As for Turners, even in his previous life, he was just a college student, how could he know so much? The private organizations he had the most contact with were just the clubs and the university. How could he know what it takes for an organization to run? However, as they only have 5 people now, they don't need any rules and regulations for the time being. When they need it in the future, they can add more. After having the same goal and organization, everyone seemed closer. In the next few days, they had a lot of fun at Longbottom's house. From time to time, they would ride on flying brooms to play 2 games of Quidditch. But there were still too few people, and there was no big meaning at all. They just flew in the sky to play a ball-throwing game and feel the feeling of flying in the sky. In addition, during the chat, Harry and Ronald also knew that Neville wanted to participate in the Gryffindor Quidditch team selection in the 2nd grade and become a formal Quidditch player. This was a very cool thing for Ronald. Unfortunately, although he wanted to participate, his strength did not allow it. Neville had the confidence to participate because he had started learning Chinese martial arts a long time ago, and at the same time, he had a lot of energy-rich ingredients to nourish his body. As a result, although Neville is not as tall as Turners, his physique is also very different. But compared with other wizards, it is more than enough. Neville now looks harmless. But if it comes to melee ability, I think Malfoy's 2 followers Crabbe and Goyle are definitely not his opponents. So, in the fierce confrontation of Quidditch, Turners was not worried that Neville would suffer at all. But Ronald is different. He has a talent for Quidditch, but it is only limited to average, not even excellent, and there is no advantage in physical fitness. Quidditch teams obviously don't want such a player without characteristics. Generally speaking, except for the Seeker, other Quidditch players must be found among students above the 4th grade. Because, when playing, there are often fierce entanglements. At this time, a good body will undoubtedly give you the upper hand. Obviously, Ronald, who is just about to enter the 2nd grade, does not have such physical conditions. Harry, on the other hand, intends to run for the Seeker of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. This position is very suitable for him. Harry's Quidditch talent is good enough. He is very flexible in flying and turns smoothly. Such a talent is perfect for a Seeker. After playing happily at the Longbottom family for a while, they also have to start preparing for the new school year. After making an appointment with their family, they rushed to Diagon Alley together on the same day. Here, they met up with their family members, bought the books and teaching materials they needed, customized school uniforms, purchased magic materials, etc. When they came to Flourish and Blott's bookstore, it was very crowded at this time, and there were many people waiting here. Gilderoy Lockhart's book signing event is being held here today, so his fans will not miss this opportunity and come here to wait for Lockhart's signature. Turners has no interest in this. Although he doesn't know much about many plots in Harry's world, he has a deep memory of one person. That is Gilderoy Lockhart. His final fate is also very miserable. His brain is directly cleared by the forgetfulness spell. He doesn't know the details, but he has learned about Gilderoy later. He is a complete liar. After Turnus came to the bookstore, he bought all the books he needed and walked out of the chaotic bookstore without waiting for Lockhart's signature. Harry and Ronald also seemed to dislike Lockhart. They followed Turnus and walked out together. Among the 5 of them, Hermione and Neville were very interested in Lockhart. Turnus didn't think about exposing this liar. Anyway, he wouldn't be able to jump for a few days. He will soon be going to Hogwarts, and his true colors will be exposed soon. He had better pray that he has other skills besides the Oblivion Charm, otherwise, he will be in trouble soon. Not only will he make a fool of himself, but his reputation and money will also be ruined. Looking at the noisy crowd, it seems that Hermione and Neville will not be able to come out in a short time. Turnus said to Harry and Ronald on the side, "They probably can't come out, why don't we go buy some things we are interested in first?" Harry quickly responded, Sure, there are too many people here, and I just happen to be going to buy a flying broom and some Quidditch equipment. Let's go together. Neville should also need it. It's just right that we go together to buy it and come back to find them. Well, this is the best. I hope they have come out when we come back. However, Turnus is very skeptical about this. I hope so. Ronald shrugged with lingering fear. He didn't expect that his mother was also a fan of Lockhart, and her fanaticism was even greater than that of some female students. The three of them first went to a Quidditch boutique, where there are flying brooms for sale in the world, with a wide variety of equipment. Here, they will definitely be able to buy everything they need. After some selection, Harry bought all the Quidditch equipment he needed, and so did Turners, who knew Neville's physical data. In addition, he also bought a Nimbus for 2000, intending to give it to Hermione as a gift. Since overcoming her fear of heights, Hermione's yearning for the sky has been very high. From time to time, she would fly up for a while and see the beautiful scenery that was difficult to see from high altitude. As for Neville, he doesn't need the magic brooms here. He already has a wind spirit broom, so he doesn't need these. When Turner's alchemy technology reaches a higher level in the future, his wind spirit broom can be upgraded. By then, it will definitely become the best flying broom in the world. Neville still believes Turner's very much in this. Harry, who was standing by, had a small treasury left by his parents, so he naturally spent 247 gold to buy a newly launched Nimbus 2001 as his competition equipment. Although Ronald's family had a new source of income, his life had become much more comfortable, but he still didn't have the money to buy a flying broom, even if it was a Comet 750. Therefore, he could only use his limited pocket money to buy some souvenirs of the Chudley Cannonballs as a consolation. This team was his favorite team, and Ronald was already very satisfied to get souvenirs from their team. Afterwards, they returned to Flourish and Blotts. When they came back, Hermione and the others had already walked to the front of the line. It would be their turn soon. This was a blessing in disguise. After waiting for a while, the fan group headed by Mrs. Molly finally came back, and they got Lockhart's autographed book as they wished. Looking at the excited expressions of these people, Turners was a little curious. What would they CJBE do if they CJBE finally knew that Lockhart was just a liar? The subsequent purchases went smoothly, and they successfully bought everything they needed. Finally, Ronald got his wand as he wished, a brand new wand. Willow wood, unicorn hair, 14 inches long. This is a great wand. When Ronald got it, he was very happy. So far, their purchases have been successfully completed. After that, they did not continue to go to the Longbottom family, but returned to their own homes. School was about to start and they also needed to take care of their own things. On September 1st, Turners deliberately came to King's Cross Station early in the morning, waiting for the arrival of others. Not long after, Hermione found them. Haven't Harry and the others arrived yet? Hermione asked curiously. Turns nodded, shrugged and said helplessly, yes, they haven't arrived yet. I hope they won't be late, but it shouldn't be. Mrs. Molly won't allow it. Thinking of that person who was a bit rustic, but tried his best to take care of every child, it was really great, wasn't it? She took care of 7 children without losing her patience, and even made Harry, who was not her child, feel the warmth of home. Yes, she will definitely take care of everyone. Hermione said so. Obviously, she also remembered Mrs. Molly's care for them. It's a pity that they will be disappointed this time, because they didn't see Harry and Ronald until they knew that the Hogwarts Express was starting, and they didn't know whether they didn't find the box or they were really late. Turns had no way of knowing these, but in his heart, Turns didn't want the latter result. No interesting things happened along the way, and the group arrived at Hogwarts safely. The seniors naturally rode in the Thestrals, following a flat road towards Hogwarts Castle. As for the freshmen, they had to walk a difficult path they had experienced before. Looking at the freshmen, one by one, moving their feet, as if walking on a dark forest path, Turnus laughed unhappily. Hermione was obviously very indignant at Turnus's bad taste, rolled her eyes and said speechlessly, "You have also experienced it, why are you so gloating, really?" Turnus coughed solemnly, adjusted his attitude, and sat up straight with a serious look. Okay, I won't laugh anymore, but now I think about it, time flies so fast. I didn't expect that we have already reached the second grade so soon, so in 5 more years, we will start from here. Quote. Okay, old man, stop thinking too much, we still have a long way to go. Along the way, the carriage was very stable, and the speed of the Thestrals was also very fast. When the freshmen were still floating on the Black Lake, they had already arrived at the castle. After sitting down, they began to wait for the freshmen. Not long after, the scenes they had experienced were replayed in front of their eyes. This time, they were no longer the freshmen who were watched by others, but looked at these people as spectators. Among this group of people, the only 2 people who could attract Turner's attention were Ronald's sister Ginny and 10 very cute red-haired lowly. But they were not Turner's cup of tea, and he was more inclined to the Western aesthetic. He still preferred Hermione as a little slender, not too plump. The other person is a very special person. In the eyes of others, this person is a girl who is easily distracted and indifferent to many things. However, in the eyes of Turner's, this is a very ethereal girl. She seems to be very close to nature. Although she can't reach Turner's natural affinity, she has a little taste. When KK saw her, she obviously discovered her characteristics and showed a different attitude towards this girl. Even when this girl, Luna Lovegood, was assigned to Ravenclaw, Coco flapped her wings and flew to Luna's side. After hovering for a while, she landed on her shoulder. Such special treatment naturally attracted the attention of others. It was the first time that Coco treated someone like this, especially when this person was the first time she met him. Everyone looked at Luna with envy, and seemed eager for her to be close to Coco. However, not everyone can get close to Coco. Unless she agrees, even the professors of the college cannot get close to Coco. It's not because of strength, but just out of respect for the only elemental elf in the world. Turnus, Coco, 633, seems to be very special to that girl. Hermione asked, but from her little eyes, Turnus could clearly feel that Hermione was jealous. Turnus felt a little funny, reached out and touched Hermione's head, comforting her. Yes, she is very special, and has a very high affinity with nature. Among all the people I know, she is the most special one. But you are also special. Kiki likes to play with you very much. Besides, you can't let Kiki have no other friends. Well, Kiki can have a new friend, I should be happy for her. Although Hermione was still a little jealous, she had already adjusted her attitude. But just when the 2 of them were whispering, Neville on the side suddenly interrupted. Turnus, it seems that Harry and Ronald are not here, will they have any accidents? Seeing Neville's worried expression, Turnus realized at this time that Harry and Ronald were indeed not here. No wonder he felt that something was missing before, it turned out that 2 people were missing. Yeah, really. Turnus was a little curious, where did these 2 guys go? They didn't take the Hogwarts Express, right? If so, they will be fired. Hermione said with some worry. Indeed, this is what people who come here are most worried about, especially the teachers who are born in Muggles. After experiencing the bizarre world of magic, they will obviously feel regretful if they return to their original world. It's not that serious. Hogwarts will not fire any student because of some accidents. They will come back. I will ask the professors. As he said that, Turnus stood up and walked quickly to the teacher's seat. He didn't think about Dumbledore sitting in the middle and walked over, but found Hagrid at the edge. Hagrid, it seems that something went wrong. I need to ask Professor Dumbledore. Can you help me convey it? Looking at Turnus's solemn expression, Hagrid also knew that the matter should be serious. He didn't care about anything else. He stood up and came to Dumbledore and whispered a few words in his ear. Although it was a whisper, Turnus, who was standing at the edge, could hear it clearly. Dumbledore looked at Turnus again, nodded, left the teacher's seat, and came to the small room behind the Great Hall, the last place the warriors went in the Goblet of Fire. Mr. Turnus, what do you want? I asked you to find me in such an occasion. Dumbledore was a little confused. Turnus walked up to Dumbledore and said solemnly, Harry and Ronald are not here. We didn't wait for them on the Hogwarts Express before. I thought they were in other private rooms. Obviously, I was wrong. They should not have boarded the Hogwarts Express at all. After hearing Turnus's words, Dumbledore's body, which was sitting there, straightened up all of a sudden, and the handle of the chair held in his right hand made a slight squeak, obviously under great pressure. Well, I understand. Don't make it public. I'll go look for it now. Maybe we just had a false alarm. You go back first. After Dumbledore calmed down, he acted very relaxed and said comfortingly. I understand, Professor. I won't make it public. I think they should be fine. The Weasleys are with them. Since everyone else is safe, I think there should be some accidents. Otherwise, Mr. Weasley would not be unaware of it. Well, I think so too. Okay, Mr. Turners, you should go enjoy your dinner. Dumbledore said easily. What Turners said was not unreasonable. If there was really a problem, Arthur would not have reacted. Turners said goodbye to Dumbledore and returned to his seat. Dumbledore found Snape, told him everything, and asked him to find out whether Harry and others had come to school. If they can't find them in school, they will need to contact the Ministry of Magic. At this time, they are the only ones who have enough manpower to find the two missing children. Snape's feelings towards Harry are very conflicted, but his concern for Harry is also unquestionable. When it comes to Harry's safety, he will definitely do his best. Dumbledore believes him very much in this. Moreover, Dumbledore can't leave now. If he, the headmaster, is not present for the new student admission work, the whole school will be in a panic. After Turnus came out from the back of the Great Hall and returned to the seat of Gryffindor 2.8, Hermione and Neville on the side hurriedly asked, How is it? What did the professor say? Don't worry, Professor Dumbledore has made arrangements and will soon know their whereabouts. Quote. At this time, he could only comfort the two and tell them not to think too much. Besides, as the protagonist, if he was directly blown away by the butterfly of Turnus, it would be too weak. He didn't believe that he had such great power. Although Hermione and Neville were still a little worried, they could only keep it in their hearts and eat silently. At this time, Turnus felt how inconvenient it was to not have a convenient communication tool. If we can use mobile phones at this time, we can know where the other party is with just one call, and we can provide support at any time if there is any trouble. This sudden idea gave Turners another research direction in the future. At least we should make magic props that can facilitate communication first, even if they are not popular, at least let the 5 people of the Leader Alliance communicate in real time. Otherwise, with Harry's suicidal personality, it is hard to say when he will fall into a very critical situation. After dinner, everyone started singing the school song under the auspices of Dumbledore. It was still the same taste and the same formula, and Turner's scalp tingled when he heard it. He thought that the horror of the Hogwarts school song was just a joke before, although he didn't listen to it last year for safety reasons. But this year he wanted to try it, but he didn't expect it to be so shocking that he quickly cast an ear-blocking spell to block his hearing. 29. Hermione is no longer a newbie. When she saw Turnus's little move, she knew what he was doing. She was also enlightened and followed suit. As for Coco, who was experiencing the Hogwarts school song for the first time, she went straight into Turnus' arms and said nothing when faced with the amazingly powerful singing. After the school song session, everyone returned to their respective lounges, ready to rest and wait for tomorrow's study. After returning to the dormitory, Turnus and Neville did not go to rest immediately. They still had to wait for news from Harry and the others. It was not until after 10 o'clock in the evening that Harry and Ronald returned to the dormitory with their tired bodies. Hey, where did you two go? Why didn't you catch the Hogwarts Express? And how did you get here? Neville was obviously very worried about his two good friends. As soon as he saw the two of them, he asked them a series of questions. Harry and his partner were in a mess at this time. Although they were very tired, they still cheered up and told Turns and Neville what they had seen and heard today. When Ness heard about their experiences that could be written into a novel, he was speechless. What was originally a simple matter was complicated by these two guys. In fact, their experience today was not much different from the original book. If there was any difference, the only difference was that Ronald's wand was broken, not his wand with the core leaking out. But he was even more unlucky. The new wand he had just received a few days ago broke in this accident. Looking at Ronald's very heartbroken expression, Turns smiled unkindly. Ronald didn't have the heart to blame Ness at this time. He was still reminiscing about his new wand. This was something he had finally guessed. A brand new wand that had not yet shown its power was now directly written off. At this time, Ronald was full of tangled emotions. He was struggling over whether he should continue to use his old wand, or use this new wand, which he had glued together with magic tape, to make do with it. As for telling his parents to buy him a new wand, Ronald didn't dare to think about such a good thing. He didn't know how to face his mother's anger tomorrow. Looking at Ronald with a sad face at this time, although Turnus couldn't help laughing, he could still help Ronald a little within a certain limit. For example, he could use some materials to help Ronald make a new wand. Maybe it was not as compatible as the one he bought from Ollivander Wand Shop. But it must be much better than his old wand and the broken one now. Moreover, he also needed his mother to send the old wand from home. Although it didn't take long, Ronald had to face his mother's nagging, which was indeed something he didn't want to face. Okay, don't be depressed, I'll find some materials tomorrow and make you a new wand. Hearing this sentence suddenly, the three people present were shocked. Although they knew that Turnus had some strength in alchemy, they didn't expect that Turnus could actually make a wand. You know, this is not a simple magic alchemy technique, but a more advanced one. If Turnus can make this, then what else can't he do? Neville was also very surprised by Turnus' alchemy skills. Of course, it's not his fault. After all, Turnus never told Neville these things. Even his flying broom, he always thought Turnus had specially found someone to make it. Turnus, can you really make a wand? That's great, thank you so much. If my mother knew that I broke my new wand, I would definitely be killed. Ronald would not consider other things at this time. At this time, being able to get a solution to his magic wand is the best news for him. As for the others, let's put it aside for now. Turnus, can you also make a wand? Harry asked with some doubts. This is really incredible. It's like a classmate in elementary school suddenly telling you that he can make a pistol by himself. It's unbelievable. Turnus nodded calmly and said indifferently, really, I made a magic wand for Kiki during the summer vacation. At this time, Kiki cooperated very well and raised her magic wand. Although it was only the size of a toothpick, it was indeed a magic wand. Moreover, to prove this point, Kiki also used the magic wand to perform a lighting magic. Looking at the faint light on the top of the magic wand, all of the people present had no doubts. Ronald, however, suddenly remembered something and asked hurriedly, the magic wands you made should not all be of this model. Turnus smiled unkindly at Ronald's expectant look, what do you think? Then he fell asleep. He was very sleepy now and didn't want to stay up late. The other two people saw Turnus' performance, laughed, and fell asleep. Ronald was left alone, feeling anxious and unable to sleep. The next day, there were no classes in the second grade this morning, so Turnus took the opportunity to collect materials. After all, he had promised Ronald something, so he kept his promise. Ronald's wand was a willow wand made of unicorn hair, 14 inches long. Turnus also planned to use these materials, but the willow he used was not ordinary willow. What he collected were willow branches from the Whomping Willow, which had been separated from the Whomping Willow in yesterday's disaster. In addition to collecting the willow branches that fell off the Whomping Willow, Turnus also brought KK to see her younger brother. After all, her younger brother was seriously injured yesterday, and as the eldest, she should come here to see him. Moreover, her life magic was the best medicine for the injured Whomping Willow, which could help the Whomping Willow recover at the fastest speed. Turnus collected fallen branches, and Kay treated her. When everything was ready, it was already 420 an hour later. The injury to the Whomping Willow this time was not very serious, only some branches were broken, and the bark in some places fell off, which was not a big problem. After cleaning up here, Turnus went to Hagrid's stone house again. Before that, Turnus had called Stilly to come here through the week induction of the contract. He also needed to collect some of Stilly's hair to serve as Ronald's wand core. Stilly had no objection to this, and she was very happy to help Turnus. After collecting all the materials, he kept them properly so that they would not lose their function due to the loss of magic power. After playing with Stilly for a while, he said goodbye and left. Although Gryffindor second grade had no classes this morning, they would have them in the afternoon. Ronald would most likely use the wand by then, so time was still very tight. Turnus returned to the dormitory and took out 2 materials from the storage box. Then he took out some magic solvent and a set of carving knives. First, trim the branches of the whomping willow neatly and carve them into the shape he needed with a carving knife. Drill a hole in the middle and slowly stuff the unicorn hair soaked in magic solvent into the center of the whomping willow branch. Then use a little bit of sawdust mixed with a kind of adhesive to fill the hole. At this point, the main body of a magic wand is made. The next thing to do is to carve magic runes on this magic wand so that it can achieve the desired effect of the magic wand. When carving the magic inscription, Turners did not skimp on the material and directly used fine gold. This is the best magic metal he has so far, and it is the best to use here. As Turners carved, a magic wand gradually began to take shape in his hands. In the end, the whole magic wand was basically completed. The remaining, and most important, is to activate the magic inscription of this magic wand. Only in this way can the magic inscription on it work, and the whole magic wand can be considered a complete magic wand. Otherwise, this very beautiful looking magic wand is just a vase, a decoration. Not only will it be useless, but it will also destroy the whole magic wand due to improper operation. The others woke up when Turnus was making the main body of the magic wand, and later Hermione also came here. The four of them stayed quietly behind Turnus, watching carefully how Turnus made a magic wand. After making the main body of the magic wand, Turnus put down the magic wand. Until CJFD, this time, Hermione spoke up, "Turnus, is this wand ready?" Turnus moved his stiff neck, wrists and fingers, and responded, "Of course not. This is just the body of the magic prop, its soul has not yet been opened." After hearing Turnus' explanation, no one had any questions. They were all worried that their words would affect Turnus and make him fail in making the wand. Turnus didn't have so many concerns. He used his hands to operate magic power and began to gesture over the wand. As Turnus' movements became more and more complicated, magic inscriptions gradually appeared in front of him. These magic inscriptions, with the wand on the table as the center, began to be arranged and combined according to certain rules. Finally, a concentric circle was formed with the magic wand on the table as the center. There are 3 circles with magic inscriptions in total, and the center is the Whomping Willow magic wand. When the last magic inscription was completed, Turnus activated the entire magic. After a flash of light, the 3 circles of magic inscriptions began to shrink gradually and rushed towards the Whomping Willow magic wand in the middle. Gradually, the magic inscription disappeared in the Whomping Willow magic wand, and a magic light flashed on the wand body, and then quickly disappeared. At this point, a Whomping Willow magic wand was completed. Turnus reached out and picked up the magic wand. After waving it twice, he felt the magic power in Mo Village flowing very smoothly. Nodding with satisfaction, Turnus handed the Whomping Willow magic wand to Ronald. Ronald took the new wand with trembling hands. Even when he picked up the willow wand before, he was not so excited. At this moment, he felt that he was really lucky. He was able to meet a friend like Turnus to help him make a new wand. Ronald also waved the wand like Turnus, and saw the magic flow in the wand suddenly surge, and fired a long green energy whip. The energy whip lashed on the ground, leaving a deep mark. This change surprised Ronald and others. Turnus was also surprised at the performance of the wand in Ronald's hand. Fortunately, after this big lash, the energy whip disappeared. Ronald no longer dared to wave it around casually, fearing that he would break another one. The previous one had broken a large piece of the floor tile in the dormitory. If he tried again, he would feel guilty if he hurt someone else. Okay, don't worry, this is just the wand itself, it doesn't fit you very well yet, you will slowly get used to it and use it smoothly, and there will be no accidents. Turnus comforted Ronald, and at the same time thought of something, maybe this energy whip can become your exclusive magic. When you are familiar with the wand, you can perfect this magic and it may become your symbol in the future. Yes, why didn't I think of it? Then I must adapt well and master this wand as soon as possible. Ronald was full of motivation at this time, and couldn't wait to run outside the castle, obviously to adapt to his wand. Harry looked at his good friend so happy, and she was no exception. Look at his eager look, what should he be called after the magic is created by him? Green Whip Wizard. Ha. The speaker is unintentional, but the listener is intentional. This sentence completely changed the taste in Turnus' ears. Green Whip Wizard, Donkey Whip Wizard. Which one? Of course, he must not say this, it is really too dirty. Turners sorted out the tools on the table and started biting. He also had to start preparing for the afternoon class. After all, it was his own dean's class, so he had to maintain enough respect. On the other side, Ronald ran out of the castle quickly and cast magic on the open space. He cast all kinds of magic he knew, just to make the wand familiar with his magic as soon as possible. At the same time, he was constantly adapting to this new, powerful wand. On the second day of school, Ronald and his friends received a letter from Mrs. Molly while having breakfast in the auditorium. And it was not an ordinary letter, but a roaring letter. This was a letter wrapped in a new red envelope, which contained a very violent magic. Such a letter was attached with magic. As long as it was opened, the content on it would be roared out at a very terrifying decibel. Not to mention this auditorium, maybe it could be heard outside the castle. It was sent by the new owl of the Weasley family, Remke, which was a strong and young male owl. Turners and others looked at the howling letter in Ronald's hand, and they were all afraid of it. Neville had tried the power of this thing, and Turners was also a victim of it. After being infused with the magic sound of Neville's howling letter, his ears and brain were buzzing for a long time. Since then, he habitually cast an ear-blocking spell on himself when he saw the howling letter. This time he was no exception, and his actions were very quick and decisive. Of course, he did not forget to cast one on Hermione to prevent her from being tricked. Neville was no longer surprised by this, and at the same time, relying on his rich experience over the years, he made a very pertinent suggestion. Ronald, you'd better open it, otherwise, something more terrible will happen. I once ignored a howling letter from my grandmother, and the consequences were very scary. As for what the consequences were, Neville did not say, but looking at his frightened expression, it was known that it would definitely not be a bad thing. Ronald had no choice but to open the red envelope. Then, a series of high-pitched magic sounds resounded throughout the auditorium. Everyone looked in Ronald's direction with a dazed expression. After several minutes of baptism, the letter finally completed its mission and destroyed itself. But at this time, everyone in the auditorium looked at Ronald with a pitiful look. All of a sudden, Ronald became famous in Hogwarts. Although it was not a good reputation, it at least left a very deep impression on everyone. Although this was not what Ronald was happy to see. This matter has been spread in the next few days. Time is ruthless, but it is also the best reconciler. Under the scouring of time, Ronald's matter has gradually been forgotten. On this day, Turners finally waited for the day he was looking forward to. On this day, there was a class, the class of Hermione's admirer, the Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Turnus had prepared some melon seeds and snacks, waiting to see the show. Although he had been prepared for Lockhart's showiness before class, he still got hurt. The entire Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom was filled with photos of Gilderoy Lockhart, and a very large portrait. What was even more unbearable was that in these photos, those Gilderoy Lockharts also inherited his master's showy personality, and each of them tried their best to show their charming smile. Turnus almost vomited after watching this scene, but there was no way, he still had to attend this class, and it was impossible for him to skip the class without giving face. After waiting for a long time, Lockhart finally walked out of his office. As soon as he came out, he showed his 8 teeth and showed what he thought was the most charming smile. However, in Turnus's opinion, this was just a very silly smile. Hello, everyone. I think you should all know me. Gilderoy Lockhart, 3rd Class Medal of the Order of Merlin, honorary member of the Anti-Dark Magic League, 5-time winner of the Most Charming Smile Award from Wizard Weekly, but I don't keep that in mind. I don't drive away the Wanlin ghost with a smile. A very classic self-introduction, and also very showy, especially at the end he showed his smile that won the Most Charming Smile Award from Wizard Weekly 5 times. However, no matter how Turnus looked at it, he only saw the silliness that filled the entire classroom, but he didn't see any charm. However, this is very lethal to those little girls and some little boys who worship heroes. Turnus doesn't care. Only those who are truly capable can laugh to the end. Turnus just wants to see how long Lockhart can laugh. To be honest, Turnus has no prejudice against people like Lockhart. After all, he is also a talent. Being able to manage one's reputation in such a conservative world as the wizarding world, package oneself through stories, and not reveal one's true identity is also a very good person. Even though his methods were somewhat despicable, he was also a mean person, and he had no strength and many other shortcomings. However, in this world, if you want to succeed, you must have outstanding talents in some aspects. As long as he can get what he wants, using some despicable means, Turners doesn't care much. It's a pity that he doesn't know how to restrain himself. Perhaps in the past, he has forgotten that he is not really awesome, but just pretending. This made Lockhart a little arrogant, and he actually ran to Hogwarts to pretend, and not only acted low-key and brushed up his reputation, but also jumped around everywhere, as if he was afraid that others didn't know that he was just a show-off. Therefore, Lockhart was destined to end tragically. To put it bluntly, Turners didn't bother to care too much about 187, a person who was about to be ruined. Afterwards, Turners just watched Lockhart silently like a clown, performing himself on the stage. Later, he gave everyone a test paper. No, it was more like a personal detailed report than a test paper. Looking at the many questions on it, Turners had an urge to vomit. Gilderoy Lockhart was really shameless. He was so thick-skinned that he asked others to answer such questions. Turners didn't think about doing the questions anyway. He didn't even look at it and threw the test paper aside. Instead, he read the Book of Vision he got before. Although he had memorized this book in his mind, he would still flip through it from time to time, which could not only consolidate his memory, but also bring him into the book from different perspectives, so as to have a new understanding of the magic of Kamar Taj. Turners was fascinated by the book, and time passed unknowingly. When the time was up, Turners handed in a blank paper directly, not giving Lockhart any face at all. Such performance stunned several classmates around him. Even Harry was the same. Although he hated Lockhart very much and felt that he was really annoying. However, he didn't dare to hand in a blank paper directly. He didn't expect that Turners would have such courage and didn't give Lockhart any face. After collecting the test papers, Harry quietly gave Turners a thumbs up. Ronald, who was standing next to him, didn't pay attention at first. When he saw Harry's actions, he quietly argued with Harry to find out what was going on. After hearing Turners' actions, he also gave him a thumbs up. As for Hermione, who was sitting on the other side of Turners, she rolled her eyes at Turners at this time, obviously dissatisfied with Turners' disrespect for Lockhart. Of course, with their relationship, they wouldn't turn against each other directly because of Lockhart. Turners shrugged and gave a helpless smile. He didn't care about Hermione's dissatisfaction. Anyway, Lockhart's real ability would be revealed soon. However, Turners obviously underestimated Lockhart's trick. What he didn't expect was that this guy was actually here to mark the papers. Is this something a human can do? This is a dog. Can you be more serious in class? This is not his fan meeting. The test paper just now was turned into a fan questionnaire, but now it has started directly. Turners was really speechless. He really didn't expect that a person could be so thick-skinned. In the next 10 minutes or so, Lockhart's face once again refreshed his cognition. During the marking process, Lockhart would explain the questions that the students did not answer in the test paper from time to time. Moreover, he is really a genius. He can remember clearly all the information about him that he mentioned in the book. This once again refreshed Turners' definition of the word talent. Not long after, Lockhart marked Turners' test paper. After seeing that Turners' test paper was blank, Lockhart, who was sitting in front, was also stunned. He didn't expect that in his first class, there would be students who were so disrespectful and handed in the test paper without writing anything. Suddenly, his face looked a little ugly, the smile on his face disappeared, and the 8 shining teeth were also put away. Can I ask who Turners Longbottom is? Lockhart had not lost his mind yet, and still tried his best to maintain his demeanor. Seeing this, everyone in the classroom looked at Turners, who was sitting in the back seat of the classroom at the same time. When he heard someone calling his name, Turners also temporarily broke away from the ocean of knowledge. Looking at the whole classroom, everyone was looking at him. Turners was a little puzzled. When he saw the unhappy person sitting in the front, Lockhart, Turners basically understood. He didn't care, stood up, and asked casually, "Teacher, are you looking for me?" "Yes, Turners, I want to ask, why didn't you write a single word on this test paper, and didn't do a single question?" Lockhart asked seriously. Turners didn't care about this. He answered seriously, "Teacher, I don't think that knowing a person's interests, hobbies and ideals will help me fight against the Dark Wizards in the future. Maybe you think that the Dark Wizards are all your fans, and they will let us go after they know that we know you well." Quote. As soon as Turner's words came out, everyone in the classroom burst into laughter. Turner's words were really insightful and hit their funny spots. If it was someone else, perhaps they would not give Lockhart such a disrespect and laugh directly, making Lockhart lose face. But if this person was Turner's, it would be a different story. Not to mention that in the minds of these children, Turner's record is actually not worse than Lockhart's. After all, Lockhart only talked about it in the book, and they didn't know whether these things were true or not. But Turner's deeds were right in front of them. In the first grade, he was able to fight against the one-eyed monster alone. At the end of the semester, he was able to fight against a mysterious black wizard and defeat him. Such a record is also worth mentioning. Lockhart's reputation may be very high outside the school. Many people are his fans and think that what he does is very great. However, in the school, these children just read his books as novels. It is one thing to recognize him, but if they really compare this person with a tough guy they live with day and night, they are still more willing to believe that seeing is believing. Looking at the students below, one by one couldn't help laughing, and Lockhart couldn't hold it. However, he couldn't say that what Turner said was wrong, so he could only find some dialectical reasons from the side. "Teacher, I did this to see if you read the book seriously." These tiny details can well reflect this point. This is the fundamental intention of the teacher to do a test. Sure enough, he is worthy of being a man who has been pretending for a long time outside. When facing this emergency, he can find a reason in a short time to deal with the crisis. Turner's did not comment on this, and he was too lazy to argue with Lockhart. "I'm sorry, teacher, I have no interest in these novels, so I didn't read them." Turner's was very direct and pointed out that he looked down on these textbooks that were like novels. In this regard, Lockhart really didn't know what to say, and he was indeed in the wrong. In order to increase the sales of his books, when arranging the textbooks, he would use all his books as textbooks for students to buy. However, in this way, he also failed in his character, and he could not make any rebuttal in this regard. In the end, he could only change the subject and said, "Okay, everyone, this test will end here first, let's take a break, and soon, we will start the actual operation stage of our class. At that time, I will let you see the most terrifying and troublesome dark creatures in the world. Everyone, you must be mentally prepared." At the end, he also showed a smile that he thought was very playful. However, in Turner's opinion, this can only be said to be a little bit. After saying this, Lockhart returned to his office at the back of the classroom. He did not come out until the class started. And the people in the classroom did not feel any dissatisfaction with Turner's because Turner's embarrassed their idol Lockhart. This shows Turner's reputation here. Even among them, some people who did not like Lockhart in the first place praised Turner's behavior. The most blatant among them are the little snakes of Slytherin Academy. These guys have received higher education since childhood and can see the essence of many things through appearances. Although they cannot see through Lockhart's embroidered pillow now. But they can see some false elements more or less, and they also appreciate Turner's who can cause some trouble to Lockhart. And in Turner's small group, Turner's previous actions are also polarized. Among them, the fan team headed by Hermione and assisted by Neville opposes Turner's actions. Harry, represented by Ronald, who assisted him, was a teammate of the two. This was a great thing for Turner's. Harry was forced to do this. Harry didn't like Lockhart very much, but since he came to school, Lockhart always appeared in front of him from time to time. Although Harry didn't understand why Lockhart did this, Turner saw it clearly. Lockhart was trying to get fans, to get Harry's popularity as a savior. Although Harry is still not well known now, as the protagonist 12 years ago, he did make Voldemort disappear from this world. This is an indisputable fact. Harry is still very well known now, but because of the silence for many years, people have forgotten Harry a little. However, it does not mean that Harry has no people who recognize him. He just lacks an opportunity to activate the halo on him. And Lockhart thinks that he can be the opportunity to bring Harry to the public eye. As long as this plan is realized, his reputation and status as the important person leading Harry will naturally rise to a higher level. After a short break, the second class was about to start, and Lockhart came out of his office at this time. At the same time, he was holding something wrapped in a dark blue curtain in his hand. Looking at the metal hook on it, it should be a cage-like thing. No one knew what was inside. Lockhart put the cage in his hand on the podium. Then, he said to everyone in a very solemn tone, "Next, you will see the most evil and the most terrifying dark magic creature in the world. Are you ready?" As he said, Lockhart habitually showed his charming smile. Turners still had some impression of this scene, because in the second part of Harry Potter, this is also a famous scene. Looking at all the little wizards, they all looked at him in front of the podium with a curious and slightly fearful expression. This made Lockhart feel satisfied, and he felt that this was the effect he wanted. "Are you ready? Then let you see it." Lockhart exaggeratedly lifted the curtain in his hand. In a huge cage, there was a large group of palm-sized Cornish elves with a pair of small wings. These little guys were locked up, but they were restless. They kept biting the cage with their small mouths with sharp teeth, trying to open the cage and let them out. At this time, everyone laughed. This kind of elf was not Coco of Turnus. They looked very ugly, and their personalities were very evil. They were not cute and kind like elves at all. They were just a group of little demons. However, this does not mean that they are demons. Their strength cannot reach such an evaluation. They are just a bunch of small, mischievous little fools. One or two of them alone can be easily subdued by even a wizard apprentice. After all, although wizard apprentices cannot cast magic, they can be dazed with a slap, because they are too small. Facing such magical creatures, the students really can't think of why they are serious about them. Seeing the students' indifference and even laughing, Lockhart didn't care. "Okay, everyone, let's see their destructive power." As he said, he opened the lock on the cage and opened the cage door. Seeing the cage that held them was opened, these lawless little fools rushed out of the cage like a swarm of bees. In an instant, the entire defense against the dark arts classroom was occupied by these guys. Their actions in 2s and 3s made the whole classroom a mess. The students were also teased by these little guys, throwing their books on the ground and knocking over the ink bottle on the table, filling the table with ink. They grabbed the students' hair and robes, making them look miserable. All these things made everyone feel the fear of these little guys. Of course, there are exceptions, such as Turners. When the elves wanted to get close to him, he directly pulled out his wand, and marble-sized magic balls flew out, flicking the elves close to him one by one, so that they would not disturb him. The magic missiles ejected from the wand were very accurate and could accurately hit every elf. Even the elves behind him, Turners could still knock them away. Such a level of spellcasting is obviously very advanced. Although these elves have some intelligence and are very vengeful, they have no way to deal with Turners' tight defense. Even if a book was thrown at Turners, Turners could easily catch the book and return it to its owner by mixing in a magic of controlling objects in the gap between attacks. Hermione, who was standing by, followed Turners and used marbles to attack the elves who wanted to get close to her. This magic was taught to Hermione by Turners when she was a guest at the Longbottoms' house. He also taught her several other small magics. These magics have one thing in common, which is that they do not consume much magic power, but are very practical. Of course, he did not favor one over the other, and taught Harry and Ronald as well. And Ronald did not hide it, and taught several practical small magics of the Weasley family to others. But it was obvious that her spellcasting level could not reach Turner's level, and from time to time there would be one or two fish that slipped through the net, continuing to dodge magic missiles and fly towards her. But with Turnus by her side, Hermione was not panicked. She always believed that Turnus could help her stop the elves' invasion in the end. Turnus had never let her down. Harry and the other two were also using their wands to fight against these annoying elves. However, there was no Tinas to share the pressure with them, and the elves were flying very fast, which made them very annoyed. From time to time, they had to use the textbooks in their hands to slap the elves that were approaching. If they didn't do this, they would suffer. Just when everyone was busy dealing with the elf incident, a sudden voice echoed throughout the classroom, "Then, these elves will be dealt with by the 5 of you. Put them in cages, and that's it. Get out of class dismissed." Suddenly hearing someone talking to them, Hermione and the others finally managed to find the place where the voice came from. It was a pity that they were a step late, and only saw a very embarrassed figure, hurriedly sneaking into the teacher's office, and then slamming the door. When they looked around again, everyone in the classroom had almost run away. Turnus had discovered this before, but he didn't care about it. This class was already unable to continue due to the disruption of the elves. Instead of letting the students stay here and fight wits and courage with these elves, it would be better to run first. However, he didn't expect that this time, he would pit himself. He had to be Lockhart's coolie and help him clean up the mess. "If I had known this, I would have left with the others." Turnus complained helplessly. "Okay, stop talking, let's deal with them first, they are really annoying." Hermione was already fed up with these little guys, and she casually blasted a little elf close to her with a much larger magic ball, and said impatiently. At this time, Hermione wanted to throw them into the cage immediately, but didn't want to continue talking nonsense here. Okay, let me do it, freeze them all. This magic is a very good little magic. It is not powerful and can only deal with some small things with low magic power, small body and insufficient strength. Its only advantage is that it is a range magic. Don't hurt them, these little things are flexible. I can be of great use, I thought of a very good idea before. Quote. After hearing what Turnus said, the 5 people had no objection. From Lockhart's expression, he obviously didn't want to see these little things anymore. It was no big deal for Turnus to take them away. With the efforts of the 5 people, these little guys were finally put into the cage. Until this time, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. After packing up their books, Turnus carried the big cage and left the classroom together. There was another potion class next, and they had to rush to it. As for the messy classroom, they didn't care about it. Early the next morning, when everyone was having breakfast, an owl brought Hermione the Daily Prophet that she had ordered at the Daily Prophet newspaper office. At first, Hermione was just flipping through it casually. But when she saw the big headline on the front page, "The Ministry of Magic's illegal use of Muggle supplies office director's penalty decision," she suddenly became nervous. The supervisor mentioned above is Ronald's father, Arthur. Of course, they have no other relationship, but as a friend, she still needs to care about him. She didn't care about eating, and hurriedly began to read carefully, wanting to see what it said. After reading all the content, Hermione finally breathed a sigh of relief. The situation mentioned above is not as serious as imagined. Arthur Weasley did not lose his job, and he is still the supervisor of that office. However, the Ministry of Magic also conducted a thorough search of Weasley's home and confiscated some items related to Muggles, some of which were taken away. These items taken away are also contraband, so the Weasley family needs to pay a hefty fine. This made Mrs. Weasley, who had only lived a few days of money, very dissatisfied. But what can she do if she is dissatisfied? They still have to pay the money they should pay. After all, her husband's job still needs to be kept. Although their family no longer had to rely on Mr. Weasley's salary, it was a good thing to have a decent job. However, this report included some reports about Arthur, and most of the content of the report was more negative, and it could discredit Mr. Weasley. After reading this report from beginning to end, Hermione finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although a large fine had to be paid in the end, at least everyone was fine, which was a very good ending. Then, she looked at other sections and saw that there was no more content she cared about. Hermione handed the newspaper to Turners, who was eating on the side. You can also take a look, there is a trial about Mr. Arthur. Oh, really, let me see. Turners was also concerned about this matter, and immediately put down the food in his hand and looked at the newspaper. After reading the entire report in the newspaper, Turners did not comment, handed the newspaper to Harry and the others, and continued to eat breakfast. Although the impact of this incident was a bit bad, fortunately the Ministry of Magic responded quickly and suppressed the impact and did not spread. Of course, this news was not good news for Ronald. And not only that, because the school's punishment for them, CJFI, also came down. After all, driving a car directly at the beginning of the school and hitting the Whomping Willow was also a big deal, at least for the school. The punishment should not be less. When the punishment notice came down, Harry and Ronald's faces were uglier than each other. However, it was very strange that they both felt that the other's punishment was better, and they were just suffering. Of course, Ronald suffered physically, and Harry suffered great mental damage. Although Professor McGonagall did not deduct the punishment for the two of them, Gryffindor's house points, but they were punished to do some physical labor as punishment. Among them, Harry was asked by Lockhart to write a reply to his fans. What a big gimmick. The savior helped the famous writer, Mr. Lockhart, to write a reply to his fans. As long as this news is leaked inadvertently, and a little bit of gold galleons is paid, I think the prophet will be happy to make a report on this matter. As for Ronald, he was a bit miserable. He was assigned to Filch, who was responsible for supervising Ronald and wiping all the trophies in the medal exhibition room with his hands, and he could not use any magic. This is definitely the most tortuous thing. When Ronald received this notice, he collapsed on the sofa like a deflated ball. Although I sympathize with the two, after all, the root cause of this time is not on them. But when they were brave enough to drive a flying car to Hogwarts, they should have thought about what consequences they would bear. Obviously, now, their retribution has come. The two of them are very concerned about Turners, and Hermione was very dissatisfied with the behavior of watching the show, but she could do nothing about it. Neville, on the other hand, was very honest and expressed sympathy for Harry and Ronald's experience. But that was all. The punishment was not something they could control, and only Harry and Ronald could bear it themselves. In the following days, Lockhart was depressed for a few days because of his embarrassment in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class. But, it was obvious that shit can't change the habit of eating shit, and Lockhart was the same. Soon he started to jump, constantly showing his presence in front of the teachers and students of the entire college, expanding his influence as much as possible. It's just a pity that he was a bit self-defeating. His behavior made the professors of the entire college dislike him very much. There is no one who can come here to teach without two unique skills. He showed his high attainments in this field in front of these people. Isn't this just showing off in front of Guangdong? Such people are naturally very annoying. The most speechless thing is that Lockhart is simply obsessed. It's okay in front of the professor, but what the hell is it to show off in front of Hagrid? However, Lockhart has also successfully completed an achievement in this school, that is, to make all teachers dislike him in the shortest time. This is a good way to die. I don't know for what purpose Dumbledore found such an unreliable person to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor of their school. Turners felt that he could actually find Remus John Lupin from the Forbidden Forest Patrol. Although he is a werewolf, with the Wolfsbane potion, Lupin will not have any problems. After all, he has been here for a long time last year. If there is a problem, it should have happened long ago. Since there is no problem, moving to the castle and being a Defense Against the Dark Arts professor is completely fine. It's just that Dumbledore's decision, no one knows what it means. However, now that the punishment has been handed down, what needs to be done next is to wait until the time comes and they can find these two people to report. Although this was unfortunate news, they still had to live their lives, and they could only obey the arrangements. For a long time afterwards, Turners and his friends lived a life of going to class and going home every day. Of course, from time to time, they would go to Hagrid's place to see Norbo. Now Norbo has grown into a big guy, with a body length of 15 meters and a wingspan of more than 20 meters. In his nest, he has begun to be unable to move around. However, they have no good solution for the time being. Apart from sending him to the dragon farm of the Malfoy family, they can also find Ronald's second brother Charlie. Only they have enough space to accommodate the grown-up Norbo. But in this case, they will be separated from Norbo, and both Hagrid and Draco are reluctant to let him go. On this issue, the two people who have never had a common language have reached a consensus and do not agree with this approach. In this case, there is no other way. They can only find a new place for Norbo to be resettled. And this place must be near Hogwarts, otherwise these two people who love dragons madly will never agree. Of course, Turners has already had some ideas in this regard. This was not a method he came up with, but a reference to an anime in his previous life, an anime about death. There, someone once dug out a huge space in a mountain, set up a barrier at the entrance to cover the entrance, and used special methods to fill the space to achieve the purpose of opening up space. In this world, this can actually be done. The entrance can be concealed by magic. The internal space can be expanded using the Traceless Extension spell. As long as there is enough space and enough Traceless Extension spells, enough space can be expanded for Nobo to live. Even, it can be bolder to arrange the inside into an ecosystem that is not inferior to the forbidden forest outside. It is not impossible to do it. What do you think? Is my idea great? After speaking out his idea, Turnus looked complacent and looked at the people around him with expressions like looking at gods. Gudong. Such a loud swallowing sound, no doubt it must be Hagrid. Hermione was awakened by the sound of swallowing saliva, and said in disbelief, "This idea is really too bold. With the power of several of us, do you think it is possible to open up such a large space?" Turners obviously had an answer to Hermione's doubts. He said confidently, "We don't have to think about opening up such a large space at the beginning. We can just open up a smaller one first, so that Nobo can live well. We can expand slowly and develop gradually in the future. Anyway, Nobo is still growing up. He grows slowly and we expand slowly. It's the same." Huh. That's good. I thought you wanted us to make such a large space at the beginning. That's not something we can do. Harry finally breathed a sigh of relief at this time. As he worried before, others also thought that it would be done in one step. If that were the case, it would probably not be something that these few people could do. How about it? You guys express your opinions. Do it or not, give me a straight answer. Turners looked at the others with expectation. To be honest, when he thought of this idea, Turners had already determined that he would definitely make such a space in the future. Although this one is only for Nobo's living environment, this space expansion will also become a valuable experience for him to build his own secret base in the future and accumulate experience. I did it. As long as Nobo doesn't leave me, I'll do it. Hagrid was the first to speak. Although he was not sure about this huge project, he also tried his best to keep Nobo. Hearing that it was about Norbo's stay or departure, Draco no longer hesitated at this time, and nodded immediately to show his agreement. Well, I will join too. Just tell me what you need. As long as our Malfoy family has it, I can provide it. After hearing what Draco said, the others looked at him with strange eyes, and Draco was still complacent about it. Obviously, he thought that everyone present was shocked by his wealth. But in fact, at this time, the others were thinking, this Malfoy family is indeed rich. No, if you need anything in the future, just add it to Norbo's list. It's a fool who doesn't take advantage of it. Okay, now that it's decided, let's start planning. First of all, where should this space be opened up? Hagrid, do you have any good options? Tell me. Well, this does need to be carefully considered. It should be hidden, but not too far away. After all, we will definitely come here often in the future, not only to see Nobo, but also to help open up the city. If it is too far away, it will be very inconvenient for us. Hermione nodded aside. Well, how about putting it under my hut? It is hidden and close here. If I am free, I can go down directly to open up the space. Hagrid obviously has some selfish motives. He wants Nobo to be closer to him. But I have to say that this is indeed a very good suggestion. If it is placed here, they will not be suspected when they come here. They will only think that they are looking for Hagrid. Moreover, with Hagrid here, he can also play a role of guarding and prevent people from accidentally breaking in. This can also ensure the safety of the space. Well, let's choose this place. Let's put the entrance in Hagrid's inner room. No one usually goes there, so it should not be discovered. Turners thought about it and it was indeed true, so he nodded in agreement. Well, let's do it. Hagrid was very happy to see this, which was exactly what he wanted. As soon as they said it, they came to Hagrid's inner room, pulled the curtains, and lifted up the bed placed there. 9 bricks under the bed were lifted up, forming a square with a side length of 1.5 meters, which was completely enough. Okay, let's dig here, and dig a distance down first. Turners instructed 10. It was impossible to let these children do this hard work, and it would definitely fall on Hagrid in the end. However, Hagrid didn't mind this. He didn't care about suffering. Instead, he thought that this would be Nobo's shelter in the future, and he was full of energy. Holding a huge shovel, he dug into the ground one shovel at a time. Turnus put the excavated soil in a dragon leather bag. He had a great use for this soil and couldn't just throw it away. Fortunately, today was the weekend and they didn't have classes, so everyone watched Hagrid work here. It should be said that Hagrid's physical strength was really amazing as a half-blood giant. From the beginning of the excavation to now, it has been more than 5 hours, and Hagrid has no intention of stopping. In these 5 hours of 6, 8, and 7, Hagrid has dug more than 50 meters underground. Looking at the deep pit dug by Hagrid, Turnus was very satisfied. With Hagrid's help, their plan to build an underground ecosystem should be very smooth. After feeling that it was almost done, Hagrid stopped digging. Instead, he began to expand the space around that location and dig the surrounding area. This project is very huge and cannot be completed in a short time. Moreover, if they want to achieve their plan and accommodate the living space of Nobo, they need at least more than 10 square kilometers. Even if there is a traceless extension spell, the space dug out will also require a large space. It is impossible to say that it is a small place. It is not realistic to use the traceless extension spell to expand it unlimitedly. This is just a magic world, not a mythological world. And the traceless extension spell is just a magic, not a divine art, and it certainly cannot achieve that level. Even the depiction of the traceless extension spell requires very strict calculations before it can be arranged here. It is not something that can be done by just waving a wand twice. The mental work in this area was naturally handed over to Turnus and Hermione. As for them, Hagrid was responsible for physical labor, and Harry, Ronald, and Neville were his assistants. As for Draco, he must be the sponsor, a fat sheep, right? They had not been busy for long, and someone had to quit. Because the punishment time for Harry and Ronald was up, they needed to report to Filch and Lockhart in their spare time. To be honest, although they were a little tired in assisting Hagrid to dig the underground space in the past few days. But compared with the punishment to come, they were still willing to be so tired. Sometimes Harry wondered, why not send them to Hagrid and let Hagrid punish them? In this way, they could help here legitimately. However, the only answer they got was Turnus's want. After Hagrid's unremitting efforts for several days, the entire underground space had been dug out into a space of more than 5 meters high and more than 300 square meters. This is only in the magic world. There are space equipment to load the excavated soil. This is very convenient for transportation. If it were in the Muggle world, it would take a lot of manpower and material resources to transport just this much soil. How can it be so convenient? Hagrid is digging here, and Turnus is not idle either. These days, he has used Hagrid was also rushing to make the materials he needed from the earth he dug out. After all, this underground space, once excavated, cannot be used immediately. After that, there is still a lot of work to be done. For example, how to prevent the collapse of the underground space and how to ensure its solidity. You should know that this place was developed not for growing some flowers and plants, but for 10 dragons to live in. They have a deep understanding of the destructiveness of dragons in their interactions with Nobo. A breath of dragon can melt a piece of stone, and a tail, a claw, or a bite can destroy steel, not to mention this underground space. Therefore, the surrounding environment must be reinforced, otherwise, let alone the arrangement of the traceless extension spell. It won't take long for this underground space to be if it is destroyed, and Nobo is buried alive here, they will be very sad. As for who they are, there is no need to say. Those earthworks were collected by Turnus Juji in the sacrificial space. In the whole Hogwarts, the only space that can hold so many earthworks is Turnus' own space. There is no such large space anywhere else. Moreover, he needs to process these earthworks, which requires a private space. For the processing of these earthworks, Turnus plans to use some other materials, mix them together, and improve the hardness of the earthworks and the magic conductivity after processing. This can save costs and also make use of waste. After all, so many earthworks suddenly appeared near Hogwarts. Anyone who knows that someone must be carrying out underground engineering. By then Dumbledore will never give up the pursuit. They are not afraid of the others, but if they are found to have secretly raised a dragon, then their fate can be imagined. These earthworks, after being refined by alchemy, will become long strips of material with a square meter and a length of 2 meters. Their texture is harder than ordinary stones, and can limit the damage of the Nobo to a certain extent. 2.4 At that time, they will be used to pave the entire underground space, and in some places, support pillars will be built to prevent the underground space from collapsing due to the height of the Nobo. This project is very huge and cannot be completed in a short time. With Turner's alchemy level, it takes half an hour to do it once. Each time, he can make 10 pieces of such materials. In other words, even if he goes all out, he can only make 1 piece every 3 minutes. And the demand for such materials is very terrifying. It is not a matter of 10,000 or 20,000 pieces at all, but millions of pieces. Therefore, Turner's task is the most difficult among them. Even Hermione, who consulted the information and designed the route for the traceless extension spell in the underground space, can't compare with him. As for the others, they just bought a handful of strength, that's nothing. However, Turns was not very distressed about it. It can be regarded as a kind of practice. It is not only a test of his own strength, but also a tempering of his character. Moreover, in the process of constantly performing alchemy, he can also master the operation of alchemy and practice alchemy. While everyone was busy, Harry and Ronald's first punishment was over. At this time, Turns was lying on the bed, using his consciousness to control the various materials in the sacrificial space, mixing them in the best ratio, and then putting the materials on a magic alchemy array for the last step of refining. As for the other person in the room, Neville, he had already fallen asleep. With a creaking sound, the dormitory door was opened, and Harry and Ronald came back. But it seemed that both of them looked unhappy. After finding that Turns was still awake, Harry hurried to Turns' bed and said with a pale face, "Turns, I just heard some different sounds in Hogwarts Castle on my way back, but when I asked Ronald again, he said he didn't hear anything." "Harry, is this your illusion? There is no sound at all." Ronald is still confused. He really didn't hear any sound, but for some reason, Harry firmly believes that he heard something. "No, I must have heard it, very clearly, inside the castle wall, but the owner of this sound seems to be moving, so it disappeared quickly, you may not have noticed it." Harry is obviously very firm in his opinion about this sound. Turns also withdrew his mind from the sacrificial space at this time. After listening to Harry's words, he was also a little curious about what sound made Harry so nervous. He thought for a while and said, "If there is really a sound, since you heard it, Harry, you might as well imitate what he said and his tone, maybe Ronald can think of something." "Yes. Harry, imitate it and see if I overlooked it." Ronald thought it was right and asked Harry to imitate the sound. Although he didn't think he ignored it, because he firmly believed that during that period of time, he really didn't hear any sound, and the only sound was Harry's voice. "Well, then I'll try." After agreeing, Harry began to brew. This sound was very strange, and he needed to calm himself down. Slowly, Harry spoke. However, what Harry said sounded different in the ears of Turner's and Ronald. A hissing sound, a little like the sound of a snake, would make the person feel creepy and uncomfortable. Even Ronald couldn't control his emotions and screamed, "Stop, stop, don't say any more." Quote. Harry was very unhappy with Ronald's sudden interruption. He asked with an unhappy face, "Ronald, what's wrong with you?" However, this was only in Harry's senses. In Ronald's ears, it was still a very hoarse, very gloomy, and very low snake language. "Harry, please stop talking, stop it." Ronald was a little collapsed at this time. This voice was too intimidating. Ronald was already exhausted physically and mentally, and now he couldn't bear it anymore. Neville, who was already asleep on the side, woke up at Ronald's exclamation. He didn't know why, rubbed his sleepy eyes, and looked at the 3 people who hadn't slept yet with confusion. Looking at Ronald's appearance, Harry was a little at a loss, because he really didn't know what he had done wrong. Why is Ronald like this? Turner's almost understood. Harry probably can't control this language freely yet, so it's not clear whether he is speaking in human language or in snake language. Seeing Harry about to speak, Turnus quickly stopped him and said, "Okay, Harry, Don't speak first, forget the feeling just now, stop for a while and then speak again. After listening to Turnus' words, although Harry didn't know why, he still listened to Turnus' words, waited for a while, and let go of the feeling just now. Harry then asked, "What's wrong with you? Why did you have that expression when I spoke just now?" Facing Harry's question, Turnus explained, "You probably didn't realize just now that the language you spoke is no longer a human language, but a special language, snake language. In the wizarding world, people like you are also called Parseltongue." Quote. "What's wrong with that? I can indeed talk to snakes. I knew it before I came to Hogwarts. Is there anything wrong with that? Shouldn't many people be able to do it?" Obviously, Harry is not like Hermione. He only learns about many things in the wizarding world when they meet, and he doesn't actively pursue them. So, until now, Harry didn't know that in the wizarding world, Parseltongue is still a very special talent. Not everyone can do it. On the contrary, this talent is very rare. No, that's not the case, Harry. In the wizarding world, few people can speak Parseltongue, because in the wizarding world, Parseltongues are generally powerful dark wizards. So over time, Parseltongue has become a synonym for powerful dark wizards. Neville was explaining this to Harry. After listening to Neville's explanation, Ronald, who had recovered at the side, added, "It is said that the mysterious man who was active more than 10 years ago was also a Parseltongue." Quote. After hearing Ronald's words, Harry's face suddenly darkened. Voldemort was a hurdle that he could not get around. Only when one of them really fell, he might be able to let it go. Okay, don't think about it anymore. It's already late. If you really want to discuss this, let's talk about it tomorrow. It's time to go to bed now. Turners stopped the three from discussing the matter, but he did not let it go, because he knew that the matter would not end. After all, he only knew the story of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. But he also knew that the big boss this time was a very scary giant snake, and he didn't know what it was, but it was very scary. Turners really regretted it now. He shouldn't have let go of all the Harry Potter movies. If he knew he would come here, he would definitely watch all 7 Harry Potter movies. Whether it was a movie or a book, he would not let it go. If that was the case, he would not be so powerless now. He knew something, but it was just some posters and pictures, and he had no clue at all. At Turner's urging, they all went to bed quickly. Maybe they were really tired. They all fell asleep just after lying on the bed. Turners also rested after refining stone bricks again. For a period of time afterwards, Turners had been investigating the owner of the voice Harry heard. Since Harry said that the voice he heard was a kind of snake language, it was obvious that it was a snake magic creature. Then combined with the poster he saw in his previous life, he could also confirm this, but in this world, there are so many types of snake magic creatures, it must still be necessary to go through a search. Fortunately, there is no need to look for a needle in a haystack. Just set the target on the snake magic creatures to know the opponents they may encounter in the future. For a period of time afterwards, Harry and Ronald were dealing with their punishment. This made the two exhausted, and they had no mind to think about other things. And Hagrid was also continuing to dig, making the underground space larger and larger. This was good news for Turners, but his task became more arduous. He must prepare enough stone bricks for the next construction work in the near future, otherwise, Hagrid must stop. Otherwise, if the excavation continues endlessly, the underground space will be in danger of collapse. Fortunately, after his continuous efforts during this period, he has now stored some stone bricks. Although these stone bricks are far from enough, they are enough to support the underground space temporarily, so that at least the danger of collapse can be avoided. As for the decoration and magic to expand the space, they can be done slowly later. Anyway, the design plan for the Traceless extension spell has not been released yet, so he doesn't have to rush to work. Moreover, searching for the snake monster in the secret room also consumed part of his mind. Turners is still investigating this matter in secret. He can't say that in the second year, Harry Potter's theme was the secret room, so he suspected that there was something wrong with the secret room, so he looked for some information about the secret room in advance. Time passed quickly, and it was the end of October in a blink of an eye. On the last day of this month, Harry will be invited to attend the 500th anniversary dinner of Nick Who Almost Lost His Head. Originally, Harry wanted him to go with him, but Turners would never agree. He is not a fool like Harry, who would just go to any banquet if invited. Human banquets are nothing special, but who knows what ghost banquets are like. He doesn't want to join in the fun. However, although he couldn't bring Turnus along, he still pulled Ronald and Neville over. Looking at the tragic backs of the three people, Turnus felt that it would be perfect to sing. The wind is whistling and the Yishui River is cold. The warriors will never come back once they leave, with tragic music. Not long after Harry left, Hermione came to Turnus in a very beautiful dress. They were not going to attend any ghost dinner, but to attend the Hogwarts Shin Festival party. There was a very warm atmosphere, many Hogwarts students, enthusiastic music and delicious food. This night, Turnus and his friends had a great time. Not only did they eat a lot, they also packed some. Even if they don't give it to Harry and the others, they can keep it for themselves as snacks. I don't know what kind of food Harry and the others can eat at the ghost dinner. Turnus asked Hermione, who was happily eating food, with some curiosity. Who knows, but I don't think there will be anything suitable for them to eat. Hermione didn't know. After all, there were not many documents to refer to in this regard. Of course, the most important thing is that they didn't have the time to look up information in this regard. After the dinner, everyone went back to their respective lounges one after another. Turnus also carried some food and walked towards the Gryffindor lounge with Hermione, talking and laughing. However, before returning to the Gryffindor lounge, there was a commotion in front of the crowd, and the whole crowd stopped. Something seems to have happened in front. Let's go and take a look. Turnus also found something wrong, because the crowd was crowded together at this time, and there was no definite sign at all. Turnus pushed aside the crowd and tried to squeeze forward. Although there were many people in the corridor, after seeing that it was Turnus, everyone chose to give him face and made way. This is the benefit that strength brings, especially in the wizarding world, where a person's strength is strong enough to override the law. The strong can enjoy some preferential treatment everywhere. When they squeezed to the front, they saw that there were three figures standing in front of the crowd. It was Harry's master, who was 500 years old and had a disease. But now they seemed to be in some trouble. On the wall in front of them, some bloody handwriting was on it. These handwritings were naturally not written in blood, but with the dim light and the special color, it always gave people a sense of horror. What was even more weird was that there was a cat hanging on the lamp stand next to it, and this cat seemed to be a little wrong. It was motionless there, with its tail in a hook shape, hanging on the lamp stand. Seeing this strange scene, all the students present were looking at Harry and the other three with strange eyes. Because when they came here, there were only Harry and the other two here, and there was no one else besides them. Naturally, everyone's first suspect would definitely be the three of them. The movement here was soon noticed by the faculty and staff behind. The first person to come here was the administrator Filch. When he pushed through the crowd and walked in, he saw the cat with a stiff body hanging upside down on the explosion at first sight. He was very familiar with this cat, or rather, everyone present was very familiar with it. He was Filch's cat, the cat that could always find students who violated school rules. Seeing that Mrs. Norris was hanging on the lamp stand without any reaction, Filch knew something was wrong. When he saw the bloody words on the wall, his emotions got out of control. The bloody words on the wall clearly said, "Those who are enemies of the heir, beware. You are next, Mudblood." Looking at the words on the wall, Filch felt as if they were talking about himself. Although he was born in a wizard family, he was a squib. Now that his cat was attacked, Filch could not believe it anyway. It had nothing to do with him. Also, a few days ago, someone just found out that he was a squib. Coincidentally, this person is among the parties involved. Filch stepped forward, untied his wife Norris with trembling hands, and touched the completely cold and very stiff corpse of Mrs. Norris. Filch was a little desperate. He felt that his wife Norris would leave him forever. But at the same time, this also made Filch very scared, but his love for his wife Norris made him not care so much. He turned around suddenly, and his eyes, like light bulbs, stared fiercely at Harry, one of the three people present. "Harry Potter, it's you, it must be you, it must be you must have done it." Filch's emotions were very unstable at this time. Looking at his appearance, it felt like Harry would be torn to pieces by him in the next second. Looking at Filch like this, even Turners couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Sure enough, hatred is the most powerful enhancer in the world, which can make a person lose his mind and face the thing he fears most. Filch couldn't have thought that if all this was really done by Harry, then Harry would definitely be able to kill him. After all, he was just a squib, a capable wizard. Even if he was very young, as long as he was willing, he would be able to deal with him. However, at this moment, he was not afraid at all. In his mind, the only thing he had to do at this time was to avenge his own Mrs. Norris. However, no one present would let him do this. Just when Filch wanted to rush forward, a few more people squeezed in from behind the crowd. And this time, the people who came were very important. Just a scolding stopped Filch's next move. This also made Turners, who had been on guard, feel relieved. Although there were reasons for the incident, if he had really taken action just now, things would not be so easy to end. A punishment must be inevitable. After all, Filch was a small employee in this school. If the school did not respond after he was attacked, the entire school sign would be smashed. What happened here? The person who came was Headmaster Dumbledore was just in the Great Hall, presiding over the students' exit, so he was a little late. After asking this question, his eyes also saw the bloody words on the wall. Suddenly, Dumbledore had a very bad feeling. He felt that this time he seemed to be in big trouble. Especially when he saw Mrs. Norris, who was completely stiff in Filch's hands, it was even more so. This was not the first time that the Chamber of Secrets incident had happened. It had already happened once when he was just the headmaster of Gryffindor College and the professor of Transfiguration. That time, a student died because of this. During that period of time, the whole college was in a panic. Hogwarts was almost closed because of this. Fortunately, at that time, the then student president found a person who was suspected of being the mastermind of the attack and reported him. This allowed Hogwarts to escape from the disaster. However, Dumbledore knew very well that the suspected suspect was not the real murderer. However, since then, no accidents have occurred. Even if Dumbledore wanted to investigate, he had no way to start, and the whole incident was left unresolved. Unexpectedly, today, at this time, at this place, a secret room attack occurred again. This gave Dumbledore, who was already the headmaster of Hogwarts, a headache. Principal Dumbledore, it's him, it must be him, Potter, he attacked my cat. Filch lost control of his emotions and handed Mrs. Norris in his hand to Dumbledore, wanting him to see clearly and then punish this bad student who hurt his cat. Dumbledore didn't show any disdain. He directly killed Mrs. Norris in Filch's hand with his hand, and took out his wand and tapped it, wanting to see what kind of magic caused the damage. After checking for a while, Dumbledore gave up, not because he didn't find anything. He still found some things, but that was all. Apart from knowing that Mrs. Norris was petrified by a very powerful petrification magic, he didn't know anything else. After thinking for a while, Dumbledore said, "Mr. Potter, Mr. Longbottom, and Mr. Weasley, come with me. Everyone else, go back to your dormitories and rest." After that, Dumbledore wanted to leave here, and the other students did the same. They followed Dumbledore's arrangement and went back and forth to their dormitories. Turners handed the packed food in his hand to Hermione beside him, whispered a few words in her ear, and then followed Dumbledore and others. Keep walking forward until you arrive at the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, and everyone enters the classroom one after another. It was not until this time that the others realized that Turns did not return to the dormitory, but followed them here. Dumbledore asked in confusion, "Turns, do you have anything to say?" The other professors did not speak, but gathered in front of Mrs. Norris, who was placed on the table by Dumbledore, and also intended to check it. Turns looked at Dumbledore and said calmly, "Principal, I have some situations that I need to report to you." "Well, then can you wait a moment? I need to ask Harry and the others what happened just now, okay?" Compared to listening to Turns's information, Dumbledore still wanted to understand what happened just now. Afterwards, Dumbledore learned the whole story from Harry and the others. Then he asked some questions about some of the questions he had. After Harry and the others answered, Dumbledore stopped asking, and he knew that he would not be able to ask anything next. After all, Harry and others, as the parties involved, actually didn't know much. They just happened to be there after the others. Seeing that Dumbledore had stopped asking, Turnus said, "Then Principal Dumbledore, I think I can tell you what I know." "Of course, Turnus, tell me what you know, maybe it will be helpful for us," Dumbledore said without comment. "Well, then I will tell you what I know. Based on some of the information I know, plus the investigation in the past few days, I have sorted out some information. First of all, the one who attacked Mrs. Norris this time should be a magical creature of the snake type. Regarding this, Harry, did you hear that sound again when the incident happened?" Turnus asked Harry the last sentence. Harry heard Turnus's question and did not hide it, and said it directly. "Yes, at that time, I did hear the voice, and it was because of the voice that I got there first. Principal Dumbledore, please believe me, we just arrived, and it was not us who did it," Harry said anxiously. Because he knew that once this was confirmed, his suspicion might increase. Turners had made it so obvious. If other people didn't know that Harry was a Parseltongue, they could donate their brains. Parseltongue is a very rare talent, which itself carries the color of a dark wizard. Moreover, how could such a rare talent appear in Hogwarts at once? Therefore, other people's suspicion of him was not without reason. "Then, Potter, why didn't you tell us the voice you heard just now? Or did you deliberately conceal something?" Snape interrupted at the right time. "No, I didn't mean to hide it, but at this time, Harry didn't know how to explain it, because this matter was very serious. No matter what he said, he couldn't deny the fact that he knew some information but concealed it. He couldn't say that he was worried that others would think he was a dark wizard. This was actually also Neville and Ronald's fault. The knowledge they had given Harry these days was too subjective, which led to Harry instinctively avoiding this fact. He instinctively wanted to hide the secret of his Parseltongue, because in his opinion, if others knew that he was a Parseltongue, they would have a very different attitude towards him. Harry didn't worry about anything else. Even if he faced Voldemort directly, he could face the enemy head-on. But if he couldn't stay in Hogwarts because of a talent problem, then he was really a little scared. After staying here for a while, Harry couldn't leave here anymore, couldn't leave his friends here, and couldn't leave his teachers here. Nothing is just. You still want to quibble now, Principal Dumbledore. You must severely punish this hateful bad student. Mrs. Norris must have been killed by him. Filch, who had been standing aside, silent, suppressing his anger and fear, roared again. His expression was very excited, his eyes were fierce, as if he had a deep hatred for Harry. Turnus felt that if he didn't know magic, he might have cursed Harry 10 times at this time. Looking at Filch, who was excited and ready to rush up to attack Harry at any time, although he felt that he was very pitiful, this was not a reason for him to treat his friend with such an attitude. Turnus was not a faculty member of the school, but just a student, so he didn't have to worry about Filch's face at all, and Filch didn't have the slightest face in front of students. Turnus took a step forward and stood in front of Filch. He looked gloomy and said seriously, "Mr. Filch, please be careful with your words. Regardless of whether Harry did it or not, you have no right to punish him beyond your authority. Moreover, if you continue to treat students with this attitude, then there will be reason to believe that your psychology is twisted, and you will no longer be suitable to continue to serve as an administrator of a school. I will recommend to the school board to cancel all your positions in the school." As he said, Turnus took another step forward. Although he was a few points shorter than Filch at this time, it seemed to others that Turnus was looking down on Filch. "If you don't believe it, you can keep trying to see if I can do it." Looking at Turnus, who suddenly stood up and stood in front of him, Filch was also stunned by his sudden appearance, and then, unconsciously, a panic appeared in his heart. He actually had a fear of a second-year student. Then, an uncontrollable rage rushed to his head, and his eyes bulged out, bloodshot all over his eyeballs. Filch, whose emotions were distorted by the shameful fear, was stopped by a hand that suddenly appeared. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel.